Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this show runs through the ages. Sinners and saints, goblins and haints, but beware as they say we're contagious. Sick with the truth, we uncover the lies. We beat on the drums as they march side by side. Wake up, my dear friends, and smell that fresh roast. Last night shall no longer exist. You're here by yourself, but you're never alone, as we spin stories you'll hear in the mist. Reptilians and greys, we folk who stay hidden. Mysterious booms, archaeology forbidden. Stay away from the village, keep off of the moors. There's a lady in white and bloodstains on the floor. So sit back and relax, take the load off your feet, as we're here to amaze, entertain, and complete. You see, my name is John, and Stacey's here too, and my, do we have something in store for you. Welcome to the Paranormal Sideshow, with your host, authors of Till Death and Beyond, John and Stacey Edwards of ParanormalSideshow.com. Hello and welcome to the Paranormal Sideshow. I'm your host, John Edwards, and joined as always by my lovely wife, Stacey.
Hello.
And we are back.
Yes, we are.
We had a long little cat nap there that we had some stuff to take care of, a little something.
Mm-hmm.
And we did take care of a little something too. A lot of hashtag. Oh my God, the hashtagging. But I'll tell you, we had a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. And we had some adventures, and we're going to tell you all about that. Catch you up. We need to catch them up a little bit, don't you think?
We do.
I believe so.
Lots of things to catch up on.
Well, some of the catching up. I'll start with the most recent. Number one, we're doing a podcast. So this is a podcast. Just so you know, we missed the podcast. Mm-hmm. And yes, we'll still go live from time to time, but I like the podcast. Mm-hmm. And our people like the podcast. I got a lot of letters from people going, hey, I missed the live show. I caught it, the replay and stuff, but it just, I missed the podcast. So what we're going to do is some of our live show specials, and we'll still do some of the verses and some of the things like that as live show specials for the patrons. But listen, we can't get away from the OG Mac Daddy-ness of what it is with the Paranormal Sideshow podcast. So we know all of you listening out there love it, and we love it too. We love you. So we're just doing this jam, We're going to do this weekly instead of any other stuff. And then we'll still do live shows, like I said, but it's going to be special little, morsels and treats.
Right.
Instead of the main thing, just because, man, we just dig it this way. And plus, Stacey can cut out when I go crazy.
This is true.
And you can't really control the crazy when it's live. But speaking of crazy, so this past week we were part of the Great Smoky Mountain Comic Expo.
Yes.
2020, Volume 1, whatever.
The very first one.
Yes. And they did a really nice job, I thought, of everything, except social distancing. But it was that's a joke. We social distance well, and so did everybody else, mask or not. And it went really well. We met a lot of new people, and we met a lot of people that was interested in the paranormal.
We did.
Sold a bunch of books. Mm-hmm. And, so hopefully those people can, read a little bit and get in and listen to the show. If you're listening and you were at the Comic Expo, hello.
Yes. Thank you for tuning in.
Your patronage. We're happy to have you aboard.
That's right.
And we hope to thoroughly entertain you for the next little bit here. Because you need to strap in, let me tell you. This is going to be one of those episodes that I'm just going to give you a warning right now. I'm raw. and we don't know what kind of special guests are going to drop in from my imagination or what might happen. You never know. It's going to be one of those episodes, though, for the ages. I've taken a peek at the news, and holy cats.
Yes, we did have quite a few big stories to go over.
Well, let me get back to the con.
Okay, yes.
So it wasn't a paranormal con. We were the only paranormal thing at the con. Well,
we were the only advertised paranormal couple there.
You guys remember A Christmas Story?
Yes, the movie A Christmas Story.
Yeah, they play it incessantly on Turner Broadcasting year after year.
Yes, because Ralphie wanted a Red Ryder BB gun.
Did he? Easy for you to say.
Yes, sort of.
So Ralphie was there.
Mm-hmm, he was.
And, well, he looks kind of the same, except.
I mean, he wears glasses still.
Except old. And I believe he may have decreased in height in the time period. And, he looks like your normal, typical, child star that, grew up and, aged. Child star that aged. And, I'm trying to say this in a proper way. Ralphie had a girl with him. And, man, she was hot, wasn't she?
She was.
She was very hot. She just looked, when she walked by, you felt dirty. You just felt dirty. And because you were looking at this thing, you're like, there's no way that girl's 18. So we found out the girl is 18. She's Ralphie's girlfriend. Mm-hmm. She's his girlfriend. They're in love. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we heard.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it's a grand thing. I think it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's awesome.
It was just weird.
Yeah, it was a little strange.
It was a little weird.
It was a little mismatch. And it was one of those things that you got to think, right? There's no way, unless somebody wanted a Red Ryder BB gun. Because how do you talk about memories of watching? Is just be like, I remember when I was a little girl and it used to come on all day on TNT. That's the memory. It's not like I watched it on network or I seen it at the movies. And
right.
I mean, not that there's anything wrong with this.
No.
No.
Well, he did have the youngest girlfriend, but Marshall Teague was there because he's from Newport.
Yes, Marshall Teague.
And his wife was there, and she's much younger than him, I think.
Well,
maybe not much, not like 18-year-old.
Doesn't matter how old she was. If you're listening, hey, how you doing?
She's really pretty.
Yeah, she was right down my alley. She was. If you ever wonder what my alley is, and you don't have a picture of Stacey close at hand, then watch Deadpool. The girlfriend on Deadpool, that's my type.
That is your type.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
I have a type. Gina Carano is my type.
Yeah.
That's my type. Anyway, back to reality. Now,
it was a good con.
Yeah, I want to break into Eminem every time I say that. I don't know why. it's like, oh, there goes sanity.
It was fun, and like you said, we did sell a lot of books. And we handed out a lot of cards, and we had the episode playing because it was in Newport, which is where your Ghost Brothers episode took place.
Yes,
down the street.
Yes, that was the big deal.
And a lot of the people that came by were like, "Oh, I've seen that." Yeah, and it's like they would put it together in their head.
I liked it. The one guy, there was one dude. He was this hippie dude. I love this guy. He comes up, and of course we have our evidence playing and a listening station because we're cool. We don't expect you just to stare at us.
No.
In fact, we do that so you don't just stare at us. But and then we also have because we were in Newport only, we had the Ghost Brothers episode playing that I was I was the star, and it's playing and telling my story there. So it would be funny though, because this one dude comes up and he's like, "Yeah, it was like the Menomina guy. It's exactly how this guy looked." And if you're listening to Menomina guy, I know you don't think it's you because you wouldn't think it was you. All right.
Right.
But he was. If he figures out how to listen to a podcast, I'll take that heat. All right.
Right.
I will take that heat. But Menomina guy was standing back here. I couldn't understand a damn word he was saying. It's like Menomina. And all of a sudden, he looks over at the Ghost Brothers episode playing, and I guess it must have shown my much heavier at the time head. Mm-hmm. And he looks over at me. He looks back at the screen and looks at me, and he's like, "Yeah!" He like points, straight arm points at me, and I just do it right back. I'm like, "Yeah, that's it. That's me, buddy."
It was interesting.
It was interesting. There was a lot of those moments throughout the weekend, and it was. Let me tell you about Newport. It's a great place to. It's a great place to go, and we actually had a room for the night, because we're there featured at the con, and we didn't use the room. We opted to drive. We opted to drive a couple hours back each night, and right. Back the next day.
Right.
I'll just leave it at that. I'm just kidding. I'm just playing. Newport is wonderful to drive by, but they have good gas stations. They went at a really nice gas station.
It was actually a really nice gas station.
Yeah,
it was huge.
It was very huge.
It's right off the interstate there.
Yeah, that's what we figured out, wasn't it? It was so busy. So, I mean, what else nice could I say about your town? That it has a very haunted building.
Yes, it does.
It really does. Marshall Teague's from there. Did you know that?
Yes, I did know that.
Yeah. I didn't know who Marshall Teague was by name until the con. But then they're like, yeah, he was in Armageddon.
Yep. He was like one of the pilots that died.
Yeah.
Kind of early into the trip.
It's one of Stacey's favorite movies, though. So I thought we was going to be able to work something out.
Right.
Just like, I don't want to miss a thing. But other than that, and I think that's enough of that.
Yes.
We can go on to Cody's birthday.
Yes.
Son Cody, Dakota. That I named unique at the time because there was no Codys. I couldn't think of a Cody anywhere other than Wild Bill. And it was the damnedest thing. So I was actually going to name him a couple of different things. One of them was after a wrestler. It was going to be Brian Lee Edwards, but that was shot down. And then another wrestler was going to be Christopher Adams Edwards. Chris Adams was one of my favorite wrestlers. So that got shot down.
Right.
Unfortunately, people kept figuring out what it was. Then my favorite Braves pitcher at the time, Steve Avery. So Stephen Avery Edwards didn't work either. So then I was like, well, I'm going to name him, after me, it's going to be a third, So John Anthony Edwards III didn't work. But Jonathan Christopher Edwards was accepted for about 4 months.
Right.
Even got mail addressed to Jonathan Christopher Edwards for a while.
Right.
And so I thought that was kind of cool. Thereabouts a month or so before he was born, got an itch, like maybe I shouldn't do it because he's going to be a John, but then he's not going to be a junior or a third. So he's going to wonder why.
You just didn't want him to be called Little John.
Well, I wouldn't have done that to him.
True.
I wouldn't have done it. That's been done to me. I wouldn't have done that. Well, it wouldn't that have been a joke at this point. He's a monster. He's, I don't give birth to little kids. But, he ended up, I was like, you know what? I'm going to get this encyclopedia. I'm going to open the encyclopedia. And I don't care where it lands. I'm going to close my eyes. And the fates are going to send me to the perfect name. Now, I had full confidence in this. I didn't cheat. I didn't look at which volume I grabbed, okay, because it's alphabetical. I didn't even look. I just went through until I felt it, and he don't even know this story. I went through until I felt it going across the bookshelf, and I was like, well, this is it. And I pulled it out, put it over on the bed. I opened it, still had my eyes closed. I put my finger down. My finger was directly on the name of the state, and it was North Dakota. So it was Dakota.
There you go.
And because North was going to be kind of a...
Right.
It's a cool name.
Right.
Or I could have just done the full thing.
Could have just been North Dakota Edwards.
North Dakota Edwards. But I went with Dakota and I was like, you know what? I love Led Zeppelin. So this is perfect. I'm going to call him Coda, which was like, an album. But I was going to do it special. It was just going to be KOTA, and it's going to be Coda. And I called him Coda, and until he was ripped out of my damn arms. That's a whole nother story. That'll be in a book someday, because that ended up being a win, folks. But anyway, my baby, no one else called him Coda, by the way. Spoiler alert, he's Cody.
Right.
To this very day. Successful businessman, purveyor of fine alcohols and horror movies. So he's a cool cat. He really is. He's also alarmingly like me.
Yes, he is.
Terrifyingly like me. And this was how I found out that DNA is an actual thing. Because he didn't,
genetics, baby.
he didn't get the luxury of growing up in my home, but we became, we're close as best friends now. In fact, it's more about like best friends than anything. So for his birthday, I wanted to do something special because I didn't get to spoil him as a young one, so I did something wonderful for him, in my opinion. I got tickets down to Jacksonville to see All Elite Wrestling, and they're doing their social distancing and all this stuff, so I figured it was safe, and also to take him to an NFL game to see the Dolphins, which are my favorite team in the NFL since I was since '84, and it was like a really big deal. It's his first NFL game, so that was exciting, and.
Yes.
We go down there, and I didn't want to go down there and be chintzy about it, so Stacey got us the nicest hotel she could find. Just so happened to be the hotel the wrestlers are staying at.
Yes.
So that was an experience that we were going to talk about.
Yes, it was the closest one to the stadium.
It was.
So
and we're not going to tell you the name of the hotel, just because out of courtesy to the wrestlers. just in case anybody's listening that is a wrestling fan, which that's a very good possibility. It's just not the right thing to do.
Right.
But this particular hotel, the entire time in the downstairs cafe area, they have like a bar, restaurant and stuff, but they also have a cafe and it's huge. And the wrestlers were hanging out the whole time. So the first night we're there, this is really funny. Stacey's been a fan of Chris Jericho because she doesn't like wrestling, but she likes Chris Jericho. Mm-hmm. And we're going to that Fozzy concert. We got VIP. It's been rescheduled 15 times, but it's still happening. So she's always been a fan of Chris Jericho, mostly because of the way he looks. But there's other things like he's funny and this and that. But, that's just no big deal. That's how we are. We have this thing where, if somebody's cute, we say it. It's not a big deal. It's very healthy, folks. It really is. But it's funny at the same time. So we're in the freaking lobby, freaking 10 feet from us, right? First night. Guess who pops in? Chris Jericho. Now, this is after we've seen Rusev and what's his name now?
Miro.
Mm-hmm. All these wrestlers, right? Some of the Lucha Libre wrestlers I love, like Pentagon and Phoenix and all these folks, like, and Stacey don't give a crap dappity because
I didn't recognize any of them. I've
been in wrestling for 20 years now, over 20 years. And during that time, we've had big stars at the house, people that you watch on TV. I mean, there's people to hang out with. It's not that big of a deal. It's really not. Being in the indies, you're going to come across these people on the way up and their way down. So it's not that big of a deal. But we've been around other stars. Never have we had that big of an issue. But all of a sudden, I seen this look on Stacey's face. and I haven't discussed this with her, but I'm discussing it now. So I see this look on her face, and she's just kind of like, there's Chris Jericho. And I turn around, and there he is. And let me tell you, in clothes, he looks good. All right? He's got gigantic arms. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to tell that on the wrestling, but brother's jacked. I mean, he's got jacked arms at least. Like, he does the T-shirt workout, and which we all understand, guys. We know what the T-shirt workout is. So he's got gigantic arms. He's looking good, man. He's like got some, good clothes on and all this stuff, looking sharp. And the funny thing is, I have never seen my wife do so many double takes in my entire life. Poor thing didn't even realize she is doing it. She is standing sideways, and she just kept like looking back over.
I didn't want to stare at him.
Back
I was
over.
Be rude.
And it was just so funny because I think part of her was trying to like not do that, but there was a part of her, another part of her that was just like, no, I'm looking, and it was so funny and emasculated at the same time. I finally figured out how that felt. But we go through that, and the kids they ended up going down, and Cody and his significant witch, Hannah Bean herself, went down and hung out for a little bit. And when they got down there, it got even crazier because they were just too much. Like, Hannah couldn't take it. We got some funny things, some funny stories there. But, we got to see certain people go with other certain people into certain areas of the hotel that may or may not be rooms. There ended up, I think, the second night, there was a big party where Tony Khan himself comes down. The owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars and AEW orders 11 bottles of liquor. And,
I don't know. It was on a piece of paper. There was a list.
Yeah, big list for a party upstairs or whatever. So, I mean, it was a hell of a time. The show itself was great. You should, if you want to see a good show, go to Daly's Place. They got some really good prices on tickets. During this pandemic, we're all having a hard time trying to figure out how we want to keep doing what we like to do. They are lucky enough to have that open air stadium. So every Wednesday night, just get online, check you some tickets. If you want something to do, that's a fun thing to do, especially if you could pair it up with the Jacksonville game.
Yes.
Like we did. It was a Thursday night game. The Dolphins played like it was 1985. Best game I could ever went to because there was it was Fitzmagic. It was fun. It was incredible.
It was so much fun.
It was a lot of fun. I mean, the NFL game honestly blew the wrestling away just from the experience.
Well, and it was nice too to be able to go to an NFL game and not be smushed in by the throngs of crowds. Like, there was a lot of people there, but it wasn't like elbow to elbow because they only let in a quarter of the of the stadium seating,
which was 17,000 people.
Right.
But we had great seats. We were directly on the 50-yard line, up a bit, but on the 50-yard line, and it was great. Just a wonderful experience. And we had such a good time. I mean, I loved it. We loved the city of Jacksonville. We fell in love with Jacksonville when we were there, to the degree that #Bruce Wayne job better watch out, because I'm telling you, if they called me right now and they were just like, hey, got an opportunity, but it's in Jacksonville, I would go in a heartbeat.
Oh, it was so nice.
Sometimes I have to go.
So nice.
I have to go research these places, and we do, and we check places out. But sometimes we just go because we wanted to always go. Like Maine, that didn't need anything. That was just perfect. It felt right, and it was right. This one, I would go to Jacksonville in a heartbeat.
Yeah, and you can usually tell, like when you drive into a city, even if you don't drive around and see the whole city, you get the feeling for it. You get the vibe, and you can see sort of what it's like.
Like Charleston. When we went to Charleston, we expected to like it.
Right.
And we didn't. No knock on Charleston.
No, it's a nice place to visit, but we were talking about thinking about moving.
Yeah.
We wouldn't think about moving
And
there.
it's so weird because we love everything it has to offer.
Yeah.
But this is what's so strange about it. It just didn't feel like home.
Yeah.
Jacksonville felt like home. It just felt like one of those magical places. And, I even had some good psychic things that happened when I was there that really led back to another story. And even what's crazy is it was connected to the place we were staying, which I'm still not going to tell you the name of, but it was connected to that area. And I picked it up. We decided to walk to the stadium on the night of the football game. It's not a very long walk, and we decided to walk to the stadium, and it was nice. It was breezy because of the river and stuff. But I got this weird feeling of, wow. There was one abandoned building, and it was full of spirits on every floor. There was dozens on every floor going up, and that really is what started it all. I didn't get the rest of the story until we were out of town on our way home. And Stacey was still talking about it, and I got like, well, they're spirits, but they're attached from long ago. It's not anything recent. It's from many generations past. It could even be Native American. It could be anything really, because it's from a while back. And really, it could have been generational. It could have been just a point, an area. I even said it might be the area. And Stacey did find some information about an area there that they have a name for and everything. What was that?
Well, let me just kind of explain, because we don't really talk about this that much, but whenever we're traveling, John and I are traveling, we drive by locations, and a lot of times John will get a feeling, like something will call out to him.
Every time.
Or,
well, I've been really weird about this for, the whole decade we've been doing the show.
Right.
I've begged her not to ever talk about the gifts.
Right.
But that cat has escaped the bag.
It's kind of out of the bag now.
And, so it is what it is. I have gifts and I hear things. And
right. So when we're traveling and we're driving along, I always keep a book in my purse that I write things down. At any time John has something happen psychically, or he gets a message, or it's something that we think we need to remember, I always write it down, because, we're not going to remember everything, obviously. And so we'll be driving along, and he'll just be like, something happened here, or there's a spirit here, or somebody's calling to me, and sometimes if we can, we'll stop or we'll pull over for a minute so he can get all the information, and I'll write it down, and then I'll later on research that area, because most of the time it's just something that we know nothing about. It happened when we went to West Virginia. We were driving from West Virginia to Serpent Mound. We were driving past these plants, like these water station plants or processing plants,
energy plants,
and
power plants.
We got to this one section, and I forgive me, I don't have the information on this, but he kept getting this word, and this, like, somebody's calling out to me, there are spirits here, and it's this word. And when I looked it up, the word he was getting was the name of a power plant that was right there where we were at. And so we pulled over for a minute, and he made sure to get all the information, and then later on, when I looked it up, it turned out there had been some kind of tragedy there, like a crane had collapsed during some construction work, and a lot of people were killed. And so it was just sort of connected to that area, and we didn't know anything about that until after.
We didn't even know where we were. I mean,
right.
We were on the Ohio River, and we had no freaking idea where we were.
Right.
And I just told her, it was like out of the blue. I think we were listening to a book or something, and I turned it down. I was like, there are people calling out. They're wanting me to stop. And, Stacey's instantly in that mode. Like, she's looking around. She's looking for, And
I pulled my map up. I looked to see exactly where we are.
I had the one word, and she couldn't find that word. She's like, well, I don't know what that is. And all of a sudden, that's when she found this tragedy had happened, I think in the 70s, I want to say. And, it's bad. It was horrible. It's terrible. These people basically are buried alive.
Right.
But yeah, it was, and that was crushing for me because that's how it feels. It's always crushing.
And it's not somewhere where we can just trespass and go up and, you can't go to the building so we just get our information, we pay our respects, to the spirits or whatever, see if there's anything they immediately need. And then we move on. Like when we travel, we have to build in extra time into our travel plans for stuff like that to happen. So we're in Jacksonville, we're walking down the street, and a few blocks from where we're staying is this tall building. Looks like it should be a hotel or a condominium or something, but it's completely gutted. It's just the metal. There's a fence around it. Looks like there may or may not be construction going on, or there was a fire, or is a demolition. We have no idea. We just know that it's this abandoned looking building. And as soon as we got near it, he was like, oh, this is weird. This is weird. And as we were walking by, he was like, there are so many spirits there, so many. And, we were on his time schedule, so we couldn't stop and hang out or anything. But he's like, it's dozens on every floor.
And for context, that rarely happens.
Right.
She always wants it to be that way, or hopes it's that way. But Stacey can tell you, like a lot of times I'm like, no, there's maybe one there, or there's nothing there, or
right. Yeah, this was unusual. And so we went to the football game, and it was done. And on the way home, of course, it's dark because it was a night game, and so it's dark on the way home. And we weren't thinking about passing that building again, so we just were on the same side of the road as the building. We probably should have walked on the other side of the street. But as soon as we get to the building, he's getting it again. He's like, gosh, it's so heavy, and he's like, there's all these spirits. He's like, they're here, but they're not supposed to be here. Like it's not the building. And that's what he said immediately. He's like, it's not that building. They're just in that building because it's there. Whatever's here is not the building. And he's like, there's some kind of big circle, some kind of big just circle area. He's like, it's huge and it's drawing them in, and they're here and they can't get anywhere, but it has something to do with something, the land or ancient, or he's like, it's not the building. So we went back to the hotel, and, we went to bed, and the next day we were driving home, and of course I have all these hours on hand, nothing to do except ride and listen to our books. So I'm like, I'm gonna do a little research on downtown Jacksonville. And so I found out that where we were staying and, that whole area, there in 1901 in Jacksonville, in downtown Jacksonville, there was a fire. They call it the Great Fire of 1901. And at the time, downtown Jacksonville, all the buildings were made of wood, and all the roofs were wood and everything, it was 1901. And there was a factory down there, some kind of fiber factory, and it caught fire. It was really early in the morning, middle of the night, early in the morning, and there was a fire that started there. They couldn't get it out, and he already mentioned the breeze. Anybody that's been to downtown Jacksonville on the river there's always this constant amazing breeze. Even when it's 80 degrees, it feels amazing. And so that breeze whips through while these fibers are on fire and just blows them all over the place. And so all these buildings started catching on fire, when the burning fibers landed on them. So very quickly it was out of control. There wasn't really anything they could do. And eventually it ended up burning 95% of the downtown, just burned it to the ground. And as this was happening, the fire was catching on in such a way that it was sort of corralling the people that were having to flee sort of into this one area. And it crowded them all into this one place at the end of Market Street. And so they were basically three sides. On three sides was fire, and on the other side was the river. And they call this the Market Street Horror. You can look it up. It's called the Market Street Horror. So when I first read this, I was just devastated. I was like, this has to be what this is. But as you research it, you realize that even though 95% of the downtown burnt down, even though these people were all pinned in against the river, and it was very traumatic and it was horrible, there was not a lot of loss of life. I think only 7 people lost their lives. Like, most of those people were rescued. There was a guy ferrying his boat back and forth across the river, rescuing people off the bank. So it wasn't a tragedy where a lot of people died. So that would not explain a lot of spirits in one area. And this building is a couple of blocks away from where that happened. It's still the same area, but it's not, exact spot kind of thing. So I did some more digging later on, and John doesn't know this, but that building that's standing there, the abandoned one, it's had a lot of problems. It's been in development for, when was that? It's probably been almost 20 years now. And it's not been, there's been problems, there's been issues. I think they were trying to get somebody to demolish it. The last story I found on it so far was way back in 2007, where they condemned it because it just wasn't, whatever was planned for it, it just wasn't getting done. And it turns out that right beside where this was being built, they were building a parking garage. And now this is that exact area. And there was a tragedy with that parking garage. It collapsed during construction. And a lot of people were injured. Only one person passed away. One person was killed when this parking garage was destroyed. It just collapsed when they were pouring concrete. It was a young kid. He was like 26. His name was Will Edwards.
No.
Yes, it was. I have the newspaper article. I'll show it to you later.
I have a son named Will Edwards.
Yes. So it was very strange for me when I was like, oh, wow, that's really weird. So there has been tragedy there. There is something going on with that area right there where things can't be built. It's an odd feeling. We thought there was an odd feeling. Clearly, it's drawing spirits in for some reason.
It's cursed. That area is cursed.
I know there was a lot of Native American presence there, but I haven't had a chance to get in touch with the Historical Society yet.
It's right on the river.
That research.
As we know, doing our research on giants, the river is significant throughout the United States, any river. And that's where all your mounds are, your Native American mounds. Even if you don't want to go with the giant angle, your Native American mounds, which are mysterious in their own right, are all on rivers for the most part. I can't say all. I'm sorry.
Right.
A great vast majority are found near rivers, right?
Right.
And that makes sense. That's not a mystery. We know why they're on the river.
Right.
But being there was what I seen in my head was a semicircle. Okay, and it was this area, if you were looking down, which is the way I seen it, where you had it blacked out, and it was blacked out because it was bad. The land was bad. The land in that area was just evil. There was an evil incarnate, and anything that was there is destined to be a failure, and or destined to have injury, destined to have. It was calling out for souls basically. And I don't know, I think that's why all those spirits went there and maybe got trapped.
Right. Like maybe it's a portal or something. I don't know. It warrants much further investigation. I just want to go down there, stand outside the building and
I would like to take a medium that knows nothing.
Right.
And has never heard me say this or anything, and just to see what their interpretation is.
Right.
Maybe someone who does it professionally and has better interpretation skills. A lot of stuff I get is raw, and we do our best with it, but it's one of those things I don't want to embrace.
Right.
So
I will have to say though, that's why I write down a lot of stuff you say, because a lot of times, since you don't try to interpret what you're seeing, you just say it. Yeah. And later on, when I'm researching, I can generally piece together.
She pulls some humdingers out on me, let me tell you.
Piece together what you've been saying.
She recently pulled out something, and she was like, and I don't remember the details, but she was like, let me read you this from a year ago. This is something that happened to you. And you went under like you do, and you said some things, and this is what you said, and it was so remarkable. It was dead on to some stuff we were talking about, and even some news that we had done concerning the planet Mars, and how they theorized that they could live in those volcanic tubes on the planet Mars. Well, I seen that. A year ago, and
when you had seen it, they had only seen the openings. They didn't realize
they didn't know what it was.
Yeah, they didn't know what it was.
Yeah,
and you were like, "Oh no, there's people living in there or something."
Yeah,
and then they figured out they could do that.
Yeah, it was crazy. Like I seen it, described it, and then they a year later are like, "Oh, by the way, this is what it is," and that blew us away. Which it should, right?
Yes, it should. So, very interesting trip to Jacksonville. Definitely want to go back soon.
Yeah. And, and like I said, it was hot down there, but not because of the wind, which is always nice. But speaking of hot but not, so this is not political by any means whatsoever. This is just interesting to me. I've never bought. Let me say this correctly. I believe in climate change. I believe climate change happens. Hell, I believe climate change is happening. Okay, you'd be a blind man not to think that there's changes to the climate, and there's things happening. But I also believe that it's cycles. I believe that it's a natural thing. I believe that if you go back through time, you see many of these occurrences happening. And I thought that with all the push for Green New Deals and this and that, let's throw cars away, let's kill dogs, let's not eat meat, whatever. That we need to be a little bit more careful, because as anybody who listens to this show knows, science can be wrong. It can. And it can also be, if you go into looking for something and you already have a narrative, it to me, that's not a scientific process. It's dangerous. Because a lot of times you can find things to suit what you need to suit. There was a story. Now, this is not a news story per se, because it was in a scientific paper. Now, in science and such things, archaeology, whatever, when you're published in a paper, that's usually after peer review and everything. It's a big deal. That's when it's available with colleges, universities, all this stuff. And being in a paper is like the end all be all. That's the Emmy Award for a scientist, like, well, I was published in Science, or I was published in this, There was recently some findings that were published, and we can link this, on the website, and maybe even on the YouTube link for this. But I found it really interesting. And if you want to find out more about it, go back a week or so on the YouTube channel Suspicious Observers. It's Suspicious Observers. I've watched this dude for a decade probably. He just keeps track of the sun and sunspots and things like that. I watch a million things like that, but this one is usually really interesting. There was a strange phenomenon happen this year. So what they found, and I'll spare you of all this scientific terminology, but the nutshell version of it is, when the pandemic began, we stopped going outside. We stopped using cars for the most part. I know that it happened, but as we know, it quickly diminished, right? Like, we didn't use gas, the gas prices fell, we just didn't do things, and we shut down factories and whatnot. It was something that's never happened, not since we've had all these things. Not since we've had automobiles and since we've had all this stuff have we done anything like this. So some of the pictures you've seen after a few weeks was things like haze being gone, or smog dissipating. You were able to see, well, hey, there's China, all these things that had been so, full of pollutants for years, right? And this is where it gets crazy. Now, this is actual science. This is facts. When we did this, when we had the rapid loss of all these emissions and aerosols because this was studying the aerosols impact in our atmosphere, guess what happened? We had a rapid heating of the earth. And we're talking a couple of degrees. It was a rapid heating. We were way higher than normal. And here's the more interesting thing. When we started going partially back, it partially went down, the temperature. And then when we pretty much as full as you can be right now, it's back to mostly normal.
That's really strange.
And it went like clockwork. It just went boom. Like, we stopped using these emissions, all this stuff. So, it's just one of those things. Global warming, yes. Are we causing the impact on that? Possibly some, but my God, when you stop all of it, which is what some of these Green New Deal things are proposing.
Right.
The evidence is now there that we're going to superheat the earth.
Right.
And for whatever reason, and
Well,
they give their reasons, but
do you remember when we were kids and the big thing was the hole in the ozone layer?
oh yeah, that was a big
It was like a big deal.
Big
and
deal.
You couldn't use aerosol spray, hairspray, and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And, I just saw this story recently where they're talking about how, the hole in the ozone opens every year, roughly about this time.
yeah.
And they were talking about how this year, the hole that opened in the ozone was the largest it's ever been this
Wow.
year. But it also mentioned that last year at this time, it was the smallest it had ever been.
Isn't that strange?
Isn't that weird? After, and the difference in what we've been doing in these years just makes it seem you wouldn't think it would be that way.
No.
If it was opening for the reason.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Both things should be opposite.
Exactly.
We should have virtually no hole in the ozone this year, and we should have a gigantic
nice cool
prostitution hole last year. I mean, it should have been horrendous, but
yeah. So I don't know. Really strange.
Yeah, because I would have imagined that we stopped doing all that and we get back a little bit of normalcy, right? But there's a lot of evidence out there that the Earth is actually, that what will happen is cooling. Even if you would have something happen where we melt the ice caps and all this stuff, it would cause a great cooling, and which would not be good either. But I don't know, man. It's not an expert. I just thought that was interesting.
It is interesting
that people should know about it, and I'm sure you can find it if you look for it, especially at the source I told you. I think that might be what we link is the episode where I took that from. Of suspicious observers.
I'll put a link in our YouTube video for this episode.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to this episode, just go to our YouTube channel, find this episode, and look in the description, and there'll be the links for you.
Absolutely. It's not the news time yet, but I know this just came out, so I'm going to totally rogue some news on you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, I just want to talk about this one because it's really cool. Maybe there'll be more next time. But there's a story that just came out, literally just came out.
Right.
And the whole title to it, it's off futurism.com on this one, but it says physicists.
Those people.
Physicist. There you go. Can you do that again?
Physicist.
It's a horrible word.
I can't even listen to it.
Oh my God. Scientist.
Right.
There were other universes before the Big Bang.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Isn't that crazy? Before the Big Bang, when our universe began to rapidly expand, there may have been a previous universe whose place we took.
Oh.
And this was Sir Roger Penrose, by the way.
How rude of us.
Sir Roger Penrose of the University of Oxford, a mathematician and physicist who just won the See, that's the trick.
Yeah, you have to be saying it in a
like
sentence.
a documentary, yeah. Who just won the Nobel Prize for work in a field of black holes. They barely found him. Suggested that our universe was not one that first existed. The Telegraph reports, and he added it won't be the last either. The Big Bang was not the beginning, Penrose said, according to the paper. There was something before the Big Bang, and that something is what we'll have in our future. In Penrose's view, a universe will continue to expand until all of its matter eventually decays, and then in its place a new one will begin. We have a universe that expands, and all mass decays away. And in this crazy theory of mine, the remote future becomes the Big Bang of another eon. And that's what he said.
So it'll just continually have Big Bangs, and every Big Bang is a new universe?
Yeah, and he gives his points to it. He says the proof of the idea is what Penrose calls the Hawking points, the corpses of black holes from before the Big Bang that outlived their own universes, but are now at the end of their lifespans, leaking radiation as they fade into nothing. So our Big Bang began with something which was the remote future of previous eon, and there would have been similar black holes evaporating away via Hawking evaporation. And they would produce these points in the sky that I call Hawking points. And that's basically it right now, but it's still very, very cool because especially with theories like, what came before, right?
Right.
And I know that on this earth alone, that there's been several times that mankind has come and gone and what have you, and lost knowledge, like Graham Hancock says, we're a species with amnesia. Well, we might be a universe with amnesia because...
Well, if you think about it, it makes sense. Everything in life is a cycle.
Yeah.
Everything. Why not the universe?
Right.
As well.
And that just gives credence to, wow, Makes
it easier to wrap your head around it, kind of.
Maybe the aliens got away, trillions, zillions of years ago from this universe before it went away, and now they come back and they're like, hey, we used to live here. It looks a lot different now.
When it was a different universe.
Yeah, this new universe, it's junk, but you should have seen it back in the day.
Right.
Whatever those player aliens had to say, the Playlians. You gotta watch them. They got the souped up UFOs.
Right.
That's the triangle ones.
They can't go for the standard round. They gotta be fancy.
Those little compact cars. Are you kidding? No, those guys get no action. Those big triangle ships, though.
Well, what are the aliens with the cigar shapes? What are they doing?
Overcompensating. Yeah. They're the ones that don't have parts.
The aliens are like, oh, look at that guy's UFO.
Yeah, that's the one.
I guess they don't call them UFOs.
That's the one where the lady gets abducted and she's like, oh no, am I gonna be probed? And then they're like, no, I have no reproduction. And that's where she starts screaming, let me off the ship. And this other one is something you would normally place on me last, so I figured I'm going to put it on you first. These two stories I just couldn't do, man. I couldn't go without having them.
Right. Okay.
This one is on Oddity Central because I'm not like you. I don't take it from everywhere and put my own words to it.
Right.
I read the damn things.
You just read it straight off.
Not straight off, but I still like to give credit. It's off odditycentral.com. Care to buy a living, breathing, wish-granting cat for $127,000?
It grants wishes?
Well, it says that. Yeah, it says it breathes, too.
Cool.
But forget wish-granting goldfish and genies in a bottle. You can now own your very own magical cat and have all your wishes fulfilled for the modest price of 10 million rubles or $127,000.
Wow.
I'm not reading that. A Russian woman recently posted a bizarre ad on a Russian classified platform, Avito, asking people to pay a small fortune for her pet cat. I wonder if she was actually selling like a legit cat or if they did the translation wrong. A Scottish fold, named Vincent the First, or Vinsk for short. The woman, known as Alina, told Russian journalists that she discovered her cat's wish-granting powers by accident, but has tested its effectiveness 3 times to impress results.
Oh, damn it. She used all the wishes.
Yeah, it might be spent. She now wants to share its magic with others. I bet she does.
Yeah,
I bet she does.
It's not granting me any more wishes.
But is asking for a considerable fee as a reward for her kindness. There's a picture of the cat, by the way.
Well, that's an odd looking cat.
Well, he grants wishes. I mean,
it does. It's very unique.
Got knowing eyes. It works only with the owners, Elena told this Russian paper.
Right.
I discovered his ability completely by accident. Wasn't that the way? I needed an apartment, and somehow I told Vincent for fun, fulfill my wish. And literally the next day, I realized that everything would come true. You immediately feel that events are starting to take shape as they should. And a month later, I already had an apartment. The woman didn't mention how exactly she came to have the apartment, whether it was simply given to her or she had to buy it. But she claims that since then, the cat has also helped her family buy another apartment, as well as a brand new car. His mother, Octaviante Lolita, was like a real witch, black as coal and also lop-eared. His dad, Rochester, a healthy blue cat, but with straight ears.
Cats are blue?
Well, I guess in Russia. It was like those ones that got a little bit too close to the reactor. Elena said that Vinsk was born in a kennel, and we bought him in 2011 when he was 2 months old. Since then, she has been living with us for 9 years. Now, wait a second.
Okay, so before you get into that, can I back up just a second?
Yeah.
Okay, I saw the picture of that cat, and I don't know a lot about cat genetics, but shouldn't that cat be black or blue?
It should not be gray.
And not gray. I mean,
so
it seems like that doesn't work out.
And I also have the problem that it was a he up to this point.
Oh, was it?
And now it's a she. Because up here it says his mother, Octaviante Lolita, which is a great name, by the way.
Yes, it is.
Was a real witch, was like a real witch. Black as coal and also lop-eared. His dad, Rochester, a healthy blue cat. But then here it says, since then, she has been living with us for 9 years. Ask why her family decided to give Vince away after all these years, especially after discovering his wish-granting powers. It says his wish-granting powers. I'm just confused.
Right.
Anyway.
It could just be the translation, though.
Elena said that they just wanted to share his magic with someone else. Plus, it seems the cat only grants people 3 wishes.
Oh, see?
Yeah, we knew, huh? And they have already exhausted theirs. They tried to get a 4th wish granted, but nothing happened. So they just decided. So they just decided to let someone else have a go. But instead of giving Vincent away for free, Elena and her family are asking for 10 million rubles, which translates to 127,000 for those of you playing at home, and claim the prize is more than worth it. Which, if it grants wishes, it's.
I think she should offer a money back guarantee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also something has to be in the writing that the second wish can't be for 5 more wishes. That's always been my thing.
It's a rule. I think that's an unwritten rule. Didn't you watch Aladdin? You can't wish for more wishes. You can't bring people back from the dead. You can't make anyone fall in love with you. Them's the rules.
What else do you want to wish for?
Well, you just have to be clever.
Maybe I want the dead to love me. I mean, I don't know.
You just have to be clever. I feel like a wish-granting cat is not. I mean, cats are kind of ornery by nature. They'd be like genies. Like, you'd have to really specifically word your wish.
Oh, no, cats are assholes.
It's going to give you something,
Yeah, no, it's going to be very, very literal. It's going to consider that a wish, and, I mean, it's going to be bad.
Yeah.
I don't want cats to have magical powers. I'm sorry. I don't want cats to go to outer space. I mean,
cats are from outer space.
Unless we launched them all into outer space without little cat suits.
Oh, that's not nice. I like cats.
Well, I know you do. They like you too.
They do.
You would feel differently if you had my dilemma. The cats are just like, meh,
Well, those are very interesting stories. I wish I had seen the Grant wishing, the wish granting.
Grant the wish winding cat.
I said it backwards. The Grant wishing cat, the wish granting cat.
Yes,
that would have been great.
Yes, me too. I wish you'd seen that as well, but you didn't. So here we are. But speaking of wish grants, so I wish that I could lose some weight.
You did,
and I lost weight.
Yes, but because you did it yourself, not because someone granted a wish.
Well, no, it's but what an amount of weight I've lost.
Shouldn't have hit that gypsy woman as she was crossing the street.
Yeah, pin her. The you know what? Gypsy women became like very endangered when I saw that movie. I was just like, every time I went to a buffet, I started looking.
Is that a gypsy?
For a gypsy to run over. But no, it's I'm in a club now that I haven't been in a long time. And I'm in the 220 club, and for staying at 6'2", that's pretty good, guys. So I'm going down under 200, and it's just something I want to do. It's something that I need to do for myself just to prove I can do it again, and then I'll eat again. So
you look really good.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. You look really good too.
Thank you.
You wanna?
I'm gonna have to lose some weight myself now.
You want to maybe?
Well, let's finish the show
first.
It's been a while for the show.
So I mean, anyway, the losing the weight, such a dramatic amount of weight, which has been, from the last time I started 50 pounds.
Right.
So that has its advantages in many ways. I'm just saying, in many ways, you just feel more spry, I guess. But I'm enjoying it, and it's a good day in the neighborhood. So the only problem is keeping clothes on.
Yeah.
And
well, we're in that dilemma where you're losing so much weight that we don't want to buy more clothes yet because they're not going to fit you in a couple of weeks. But the ones you have absolutely don't fit you. So we bought a few things to kind of get you through that transition period.
So I went from having the last notch on my belt where that's the one I had to use, and I'm 6 over comfortably.
I'm gonna have to make you a new notch pretty soon. We'll just buy you a new belt.
Yeah, so I'm 6 over, and that's a lot. I went down many pant sizes.
You have.
So it's we won't tell what that is, but it's been a lot.
Yes.
So it's not like I was like carrying a wheelbarrow full of blubber with me. I mean, it's just
no.
It's just it was there and it could come off, so it came off, and feel really good about it, folks. You need to go, and if you want to do a diet, you got to do it the way I did it, which is starve yourself to death. No,
that is not true.
Weight Watchers is really cool. I use the app with the points, and the points are a godsend because you can just put anything in there that you're eating, And you get so many points a day. I don't get that many points anymore, but it's still cool while it lasts.
I like it because you can go to any restaurant and it tells you what you can eat at that particular restaurant.
Yeah, we even had a nice dinner at Applebee's and stuff, and it was all well within the range. But now I'm going to talk about something that's very special to all of us. We love the month of October. We love autumn. We love fall, y'all. And this is just, man, you know what? We say it's our favorite time of year. I've always said it my entire life. And a lot of people feel the same way. But there's something about the changing of the leaves, the crisp in the air, the jeans weather, sweater weather. It's just something about it. It just smells like football.
But you can still feel the sun shining on you.
Oh, man.
Nice and warm.
Just love it. I mean, I absolutely love it. But the other thing I love about this is I married a October lady.
Yes.
And always intended to as well. That was always wanted a girl that was born in October just because there's something mysterious about it. And now that I know all about Libras, I'm glad I did that as well. Because you can't go wrong with a Libra.
That's right.
Stacey's birthday is coming up next week.
Yay. I'm so excited.
But we've already done celebrations and we've already done presents. And
that's because my birthday lasts all month.
It's sort of a whole month long celebration going into her 29th birthday. And, so it's one of those things where this time it kind of fits the show to tell a few of the presents that you got.
Yes, so John's already given me some of his presents that he got me, and I love them. So the first thing I got was a beautiful bracelet and pendant set, and it's rainbow moonstone and silver, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And I've been looking at it every time we go to the magic shop. It was in the little witchy store, and they had it in the glass case, and I would look at it every time I went in. And he bought it for me because he noticed me looking at it because he's a good husband like that. So I love that. I've been wearing it every day. And then he got me, and I've been wanting one of these forever. He got me my very first crystal ball. And it's big enough that I have to hold it in two hands. And it's quartz, real quartz.
The crystal ball she's talking about.
Crystal ball, yes. And it came with a stand. And the stand is beautiful. It's carved, and it's got the trees and the women's faces on it and things like that. It's really beautiful. And he also got me a spirit board that I've been wanting. And it's not just an ordinary wooden spirit board. It's a big round piece that looks like stone, and it's carved. It's got these Gothic letters going all the way around it. It's got the Tree of Life in the middle. It's got a pentagram on top of the Tree of Life, and it's got a glass top. The glass top sits up above it, and it's a big round glass top, and then the planchette is a circle that has a pentagram with a hole in the middle, and it's beautiful, and I love it. And it's also something else I was looking at that he remembered, and he went and got it for me. So it's very cool.
Yes, it was one of those things where she rarely picks stuff out and just loves it and says, "Oh, I got to get that someday." And so when she does, it always checks off in the head, and you got to get that.
And he remembers.
You got to get that stuff. Guys, listen, whenever the lady says something like she would like to have something someday, or, she really likes these kind of things, but oh, how expensive they are. And she talks about how ridiculous the price is. That doesn't mean it's ridiculous. That means you need to get it. You need to figure out a way to get it. You need to go out of your way to get it. And especially if she talked about it a month before, 2 months before, something like that, it means a whole lot. So it means a lot more than
I think that spirit board was 2 months ago.
Yeah, the jewelry was the same.
Yeah,
it was
a long time ago.
And it was luckily still there because I was surprised. I was like, let's go down here, and I knew what I wanted when I went. So
right.
Both times. So of course she kind of knew this last time what we were going for, but to the other shop. So that shop's badass too. That's one in Asheville.
Yeah,
and
we love that store.
We love that. Give them a little bit of love.
Oh yeah, in Asheville, if you're anywhere near Asheville, North Carolina, there's a little shop. It's called Raven and Crone, and they have just the best stuff. I love it. They have everything you could possibly need, and they make their own herbs. They locally source things like graveyard dirt and stuff like that, but they'll make bags of spell kits and stuff if you need that sort of thing. They have books, they have new books, they have used books, statues.
They do readings.
They always have somebody there in the back doing some kind of readings. I think it varies. And they do. They have a tea room, although I don't know that the tea room's been operating recently. Like I don't think that because of the pandemic, but they are open now. They were just you had to make an appointment, but now they're open where you can just come and shop, and it's fantastic. I love it. They have thousands of tarot decks and runes and statues and candles and just anything you could need.
Well, speaking of tarot decks, I'll do a little advertising right here. The mystical Raja, the mystical and beautiful Raja, is now doing readings of herself. I'm not reading herself.
Right.
She does that too.
Right.
But she is offering readings, and you can pick up one of those readings on her Etsy shop.
Yeah, it's a Etsy shop that she just started. It's called Readings by Raja, and she just has one listing on there right now, but she's going to add more as she figures out what levels she wants to do. But you can go on there and just pay for a personal tarot reading, and she uses tarot cards and oracle cards, and she will deliver that to you, whatever questions you ask.
And she's bloody good too.
She is.
She really is. I think you'll like it. I think you'll dig it. And she, like I said, it runs in the family, y'all. She's good. Well, for today's list, I wanted to do something a little bit special. And, it has nothing to do with the fact that I think the Vatican could be the continuation of the Roman Empire, that Rome didn't really fall, that maybe it transcended into something else. But that's for a whole nother show and a whole nother day.
It is.
Everybody wants to know what's in the Vatican, right?
Right.
The secret archives of the Vatican, or it's just hidden somewhere in the Vatican. And not stuff that's just obvious, like, giant serpents on the wall or anything like that.
Right.
I'm talking about what's really hidden, the secrets of the Vatican. And it's one of the world's most secretive places. I mean, and also one of the coolest when you think about stuff like astronomy and things that they really, they dive into, right? And when you really look into the diversity of their accounts, you find stuff like, I don't know, Southwest Virginia, they, and West Virginia, they own like all the coal mines and stuff like that.
Very strange.
Tax-free stuff. And anyway, because, churches. And,
of course.
Yeah. No, but that's a whole nother, story for a whole nother day. But I wanted to delve in a little bit to what could be hidden, possibly, allegedly. It's a little question like Ancient Aliens. Could it be hidden inside the walls of the Vatican?
Yes, the Vatican secret archives.
Yeah, everything's in the form of a question, y'all.
It is.
So let's get into it. What do you think's hidden in the Vatican?
Everything. All the knowledge.
Yeah.
All the knowledge.
It'd be nice if like the Library of Alexandria wasn't really burned to the ground.
Right. One thing I think is so funny about that secret archives isn't the rule that only certain people can go there, and you have to know what you're looking for.
Yeah, you have to go in there with the knowledge of what you're looking at.
Which is silly.
Yeah.
Because how are you going to find out something
and
you don't know?
Even if you see one of these shows where they're like, it's not that secret enough, you can go in here, they're full of crap. Listen, there's secrets, and everybody has secrets. I mean, there's secrets all over the place.
Right.
Everybody lies to you, but they lie more than most. so let's start with this.
Okay.
The third secret of Fatima.
Ooh.
Yeah, pretty cool, huh? In 1917, 3 shepherd children from Fatima, Portugal, received 3 prophetic visions of the Virgin Mary. Known as the 3 secrets of Fatima, the first and second concern the nature of hell and the rise of the communist Russia, wars, famine, persecution, and the spread of Russia's eras throughout the world, the Virgin said, would all come to pass if her calls went unheeded. These first 2 secrets were published in 1941. However, the third secret was not. Instead, it was sealed in an envelope and given to the Bishop of Leiria, who placed it unopened in the Vatican secret archives. In 1959, the envelope was brought before Pope John the 23rd. However, after some deliberation, he chose not to look inside, which I also don't believe.
Right.
It wasn't until 1965 that anyone actually read the prophecy. And even then, Pope Paul VI refused to make it public. Pope John Paul II was next to read it, following an assassination attempt in 1981, but he also continued to keep it a secret. He did, however, immediately consecrate the earth to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, perhaps hinting at the gravity of its content, you think. Finally, in 2000, John Paul II revealed what the prophecy said. There was to be an apocalyptic battle between good and evil, and the Pope would figure centrally within it. A description of the vision can now be read online, but some refuse to believe that it's complete. Even Pope Benedict the 16th implied in 2010 that the real third secret of Fatima has yet to be revealed, although the Vatican denies that's what he meant, even though he said that.
Right.
They're like, no, he didn't mean that at all. Of course, Pope Benedict said quite a few things I don't think they wanted him to mean.
Right. I mean, it is very possible they didn't reveal the whole thing or even the right thing. Who knows?
It sounds very pro-churchy. Like,
right. Yeah, because they're like, sure, I'll give you the third secret. The Pope's super important.
Dude, the Bible says what it said. I mean, like, the book of Revelation, hello. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a apocalyptic battle between good and evil. No shit. I mean, what? I mean...
Really?
I mean, it's just like, up is up, down is down, you know? Dogs cannot consecrate, you know, I mean, it's stupid. It's, I mean, to me, that was like, that's just too, I mean, why would you not read that in 1965?
Right.
You know?
I can't imagine what it would say to make a pope read it and decide not to publish it.
Yeah, to kiss the ground.
And then
I mean,
consecrate the ground.
Yeah.
I mean, I've read this. Let me just wash my hands or something, you know?
I think it would have took more than
bleach my eyes.
The apocalyptic battle.
Yeah, I think so too.
You know,
I think so too.
I mean, I don't know. It's a very cool story. It seems like a really crazy UFO
I do believe that is actually hidden in the Vatican, though. That secret, like that, I think that's absolutely something they have hidden in their secret archives.
I agree.
Yes,
I believe there's other prophetic things that they have there from people that were mostly correct, and they just put them in there. Let's move on though.
Okay.
Extraterrestrial artifacts.
Ah, yes.
The Vatican might appear to be focused on the past, but they're actually kind of progressive, very progressive, at least when it comes to science and technology. In particular, they're quite open to the possibility of extraterrestrial life. You know why? Because they freaking know.
That's right.
Even holding conferences on astrobiology and using the Vatican Observatory to find Earth-like planets beyond our own, because they know it all happened like overnight.
That's right.
Allegedly, the church has known about alien civilizations for centuries, long before the Roswell incident. They're said to have been gathering ET remains and artifacts. I mean, wouldn't that be the Ark of the Covenant? I mean...
Yeah.
If you really want to get technical.
Right. But I don't think they consider that alien.
Yeah. As well as technical documents for engineering alien weaponry. While there's pretty much zero evidence to back this claim up, the purpose of the Vatican archives has long been to hide knowledge the world isn't ready for. Because these humans are more important than the other humans, I don't know.
Yeah, they get to decide who's ready for what.
Yeah,
or whatever.
They demonstrated that much by withholding the third secret of Fatima, as we previously talked about.
Exactly.
For so many years. Furthermore, according to the extraterrestrial cover-up theory, the archives aren't the only facility of the kind. Supposedly, the Great Pyramid of Giza served essentially the same function, hiding alien artifacts and earth-shattering revelations from the people of the ancient world. This, the theorists claim, is why Napoleon and Hitler both headed straight there after spending some time at the Vatican, which makes total sense if you go there and it's like, you know, it's all hidden in the pyramid. I mean, whatever it is. I mean, yes, there's things hidden there. One of the biggest things hidden there you look at every time you see it, and that's how old the damn thing is. Okay? And that's who didn't build it.
Right.
Again, sorry, not sorry.
So what's your probability of that? You think they really do have the alien
I believe they have tons of alien stuff. I believe they have a lot of stuff that tells you what was ET and what wasn't, who is ET and who isn't, you know, maybe even the races of extraterrestrial.
Possibly.
I mean, come on, look. Since even that was written, our own government's come out and said, yeah, that's what that is. We can't really pin that on anything else.
Well, I remember we did the story a long time ago about how the Pope talked about if we did find alien life, then they would just be, you know, the church's view on that. They'd be welcomed in the church, or, you know, they're just beings. And, you know, they're very
open
about it.
They're open to Galians. It don't matter. They're looking for membership though, you know. That's
right. We gotta boost our numbers. Yeah. Aliens, come on.
Yeah, aliens, gay aliens, mind reading cats.
Wish granting cats.
Wish granting cats. So the next is the chronovisor. Described by Father Francois Brune in his 2002 book, that was a book that's written in French. The chronovisor is a device that is rumored to have been created and owned by the Vatican. According to Arnetti, The device was co-designed with top scientist Enrico Fermi, who developed the first nuclear reactor, and Werner von Braun, the first space rockets. Every time I say his name, I want to stomp my foot for some reason. And it could also record images. The device is said to work like a pair of glasses, and where worn up against the face, it was theoretically able to view events from the past. Sounds very much like something that was on Primetime Live Alien thing in 1988, where they talked about, well, the alien had this device you could look at and see things from the past. It allegedly worked by processing electromagnetic radiation left over from past events, which also makes sense, and turning them into visual images and audio. Father Brune claimed to have witnessed many historical events, including the crucifixion of Christ. Soon after it was created, apparently, it was dismantled, as the church hierarchy was concerned that they may see too many little boys. It's like, oh crap, they're going to take...
Somebody's going to get it and see how the church formed.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen.
Yeah. It's just like, holy crap, holy Caesar.
We can't let this get out.
If it exists, any evidence of it would be safely tucked away in the Vatican secret archive.
It does make sense, though, because, they have technology now they're working on where they take people's dreams and turn them into visions. That's the same kind of concept, taking energy and turning it into a picture.
Yeah, the electromagnetic energy, it would completely change the world of murder investigations.
It would.
Because you could just go into the room and see... I mean, if they had that technology and didn't let that out in the world, then there's a whole lot of murders that are on their heads, in my opinion.
I'm sure there are anyway.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's documented.
Right.
But it's for the cause.
Right.
Wow, it's like every Catholic listener is writing a letter right now.
Oh, true.
Details of Jesus' bloodline. Practically nothing is known about Christ's life between his childhood and his early 30s, just a few years before he was crucified. Naturally, it's possible, even probable, that he started a family during that time, and this raises questions of lineage. According to some theorists, the specific details of his bloodline are hidden away in the Vatican archives. After all, if anyone alive today was found to be a direct descendant of Jesus Christ, and therefore God, the implications for the church would be huge. At the very least, the Pope would be rendered useless as humanity's go-between.
Right.
It's a compelling theory, but in reality, things aren't so simple. Whatever information the Vatican may or may not have about the earliest descendants of Christ, there would be far too many of them to keep tabs on today. In fact, almost everyone would be included. That's just the way human ancestry works in an ever-growing population of very horny people. Tracing your heritage back just 20 generations, for instance, would turn up 600,000 to 1 million biological forebears. Hell of a party. Tracing it back 120 generations to 1000 BC would turn up everyone in the world.
Yes.
So
we're all related.
We've all knocked boots at one point or another.
In some way.
In some ways. It's no secret whatsoever.
It is a big theory, though, that, Jesus was married.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a ongoing discussion people have, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get into that one.
No, me neither.
Paintings of the real Jesus. Unlike what is taught in Sunday school, Jesus was a Hebrew who lived in the mountainous regions in northern Israel. Therefore, he almost certainly would have looked more Middle Eastern than what is often portrayed. As a result, the real historical Jesus would have looked nothing like what's portrayed in popular culture, much of which is based on the face of a very handsome Caesar Borgia.
Oh, wow. Like they really based that image on a person?
Well, that's what it says.
Wow.
However, some people believe the Vatican has at least one contemporary depiction of Jesus' appearance. If this is true, then not only would it be undeniable evidence of Jesus' existence from only a few years after Jesus' death, I hope that's not when they painted it, but it would also give a rare look into such an old historical figure's physical appearance. Whether it exists or why the Vatican would keep such an earth-shattering information a mystery is unknown and disputed, unless he is fugly.
Right. I don't think that a lot of people dispute the fact that he was, clearly he's Middle Eastern. He should be. Just because of where he was born and his parentage and stuff.
Yeah.
So, it'd be interesting if they had an actual painting, though.
The Grand Grimoire.
Ooh.
The Grand Grimoire is an alleged medieval book that is believed to possess immense powers. It was written in the 16th century by Honorius of Thebes, who claimed to be possessed by the devil himself. In the book, it has instructions on how to make magic talismans and amulets, how to make magic spells, and even how to summon demons. However, most alarmingly, it even offers instructions as to how to summon the devil himself and to make a deal with him. There have been many copies made after the original was published. However, only the Vatican has the original unaltered copy. Some claim that the others are fake or have been altered to make them worthless. Others claim that all copies have some power, but the original copy owned by the Vatican is the most powerful. Still, according to some, the only real functional copy is held by the Vatican as a way to protect humanity from the unimaginable carnage if the book fell in the wrong hands. Some would argue it's in the wrong hands.
Right. It does make sense, though, because all they'd have to do is change one thing in every spell to make it worthless, to make it not work.
I don't know. I think intent would still probably do quite a bit.
Maybe. I don't know. Depends what kind of spells are in there.
The devil. As the Vatican's most senior exorcist, Father Gabriel Amorth knew how to recognize a demon. Before his death in 2016, he conducted literally tens of thousands of exorcisms and had frequently spoken to the devil. Satan is pure spirit, he told the exorcist director William Friedkin, although he sometimes appears to be a raging animal. Often called upon to expel the demon from possessed individuals, Amorth used Pope Paul V's 1614 ritual to do the job, stoically commanding the devil to leave under some of the tensest, most frightening circumstances. So it made shocking headlines in 2010 when Amorth claimed Satan was hiding in the Vatican. He wasn't speaking figuratively. In his view, the scandals and corruptions that have beset the church in recent times are attributable to the devil. Even Pope Paul VI said something similar in 1972, lamenting that from somewhere or other, the smoke of Satan has entered the temple of God.
I agree with that. I think that there is something going on there. Just if you just look at the Vatican, the design of it, and it's weird.
Yeah.
It's weird.
One of my favorite stories, evidence of a female pope.
Love the story.
Pope Joan, a female pope who allegedly sat on the chair of St. Peter sometime around the year 855, is a touchy subject for the Catholic Church, despite the fact that some 500 historical texts specifically mention her. Most versions of her story describe her as a talented and learned woman who disguised herself as a man, often at the behest of a lover. In the most common accounts, due to her abilities, she rose through the church hierarchy and eventually elected pope. Her sex was revealed when she gave birth during a procession.
Oh, no.
She died.
Bad timing.
She died shortly after, either through murder or of natural causes, which you figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
The accounts state that the Vatican removed the female pope from its official list and crafted a ritual to ensure that future popes were male. The legend was generally accepted as true until the 16th century, when widespread debate among Catholic and Protestant writers called the story into question. Various writers noted that the implausibility long gap between Joan's supposed lifetime and her first appearance in text. You know, they don't have any problem with other people's supposed lifetime and their first appearance in text.
Right.
Pope Joan is now widely considered fictional.
Yet they still have the ritual to make sure that the Pope's a man. What is that ritual? What do you think that? What do you think that entails?
I would guess it has something to do with grabbing junk.
I'm sure it does.
It's like,
how awkward is that?
Can you imagine? Like they got this. They're getting ready to put the bill of the smoke out the top, right? They're picking a new pope, and they're like, okay, Pope Amicus the 75th, please come toward. Okay, I'm here. This is one. This is like the last thing whatever it is, get it over with. No, I mean, this one, it's a bit. Just get it over with. It's Who
do you think has the honor of being the Pope checker?
You don't want me to actually say that. Okay. I think they carry that ritual out in a lot of places.
Oh, I see. I see.
So, keeping with our controversial list here,
right?
I wanted to bring something up that I think is in there.
Okay.
There's a new book. I was listening to Joe Rogan, and if you don't listen to Joe Rogan, you're missing out because he usually stays middle of the road on his opinions, for the most part, as far as like politically and all this stuff. He'll talk to anybody, but he has some bloody interesting guests. And,
he does.
And when he does, he has some interesting topics and what have you. I noticed a couple of weeks ago, Graham Hancock was on there. If Graham Hancock's on there, I'm going to listen to it no matter what it is. But on this one, he was on there so people like me would listen and hear this other writer who just published his book. The book itself is The Immortality Key, The Secret History of the Religion with No Name. And the writer is Brian C. Murarescu. And I'm telling you, I can't wait for mine to arrive.
Mm-hmm.
It's been ordered. Going to read it from cover to cover, pillar to post. Because the interview, if you've not seen the interview, man, you got to go out of your way.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to it, watch it, whatever. It's fantastic. I would tell you, you need to watch this one because they use some stuff throughout the interview. So find it on YouTube or Spotify or whatever to watch this.
Yeah, because they bring up pictures and things like that on the internet and stuff.
It's great. A little product description taken from the book. It's a groundbreaking dive into the role psychedelics have played in the origins of Western civilization and the real-life quest for the Holy Grail that could shake the church to its foundations. I hear AC/DC. Shake your foundation. The most influential religious historian of the 20th century, Houston Smith, once referred to it as the best-kept secret in history. Did the ancient Greeks use drugs to find God? And did the earliest Christians inherit the same secret tradition? A profound knowledge of visionary plants, herbs, and fungi passed from one generation to the next ever since the Stone Age. There is zero archaeological evidence for the original Eucharist, the sacred wine said to guarantee life after death for those who drink the blood of Jesus. The Holy Grail and its miraculous contents have never been found. In the absence of any hard data, whatever happened at the Last Supper remains an article of faith for today's 2.5 billion Christians. In an unprecedented search for real answers, the Immortality Key examines the archaic roots of the ritual that is performed every Sunday for nearly 1/3 of the planet. Religion and science converge to paint a radical picture of Christianity's founding event, and after centuries of debate to solve history's greatest puzzle once and for all. Before the birth of Jesus, the ancient Greeks found salvation in their own sacraments. Sacred beverages were routinely consumed as part of what the so-called ancient mysteries, elaborate rites that led initiates to the brink of death. The best and brightest from Athens and Rome flocked to the central capital of Eleusis, where a holy beer unleashed heavenly visions for 2,000 years. Others drank the holy wine of Dionysus to become one with God. In the 1970s, renegade scholars claimed that this beer and wine, the original sacraments of Western civilizations, were spiked with mind-altering drugs. In recent years, vindication for the disgraced theory has been quietly mounting in the laboratory. The constantly advancing fields of archaeobotany and archaeochemistry have hinted that an enduring use of hallucinogenic drinks in antiquity. And Johns Hopkins and NYU are now turning self-proclaimed atheists into instant believers. But the smoking gun remains elusive. If these sacraments survived for thousands of years in our remote prehistory, from the Stone Age to the ancient Greeks, did they also survive into the age of Jesus? Was the Eucharist of the early Christians, in fact, a psychedelic Eucharist? With unquenchable thirst for evidence, Murarescu takes the reader on a 12-year global hunt for proof. He tours the ruins of Greece with its government archaeologists. He gains access to the hidden collections of the Louvre Museum to show the continuity from pagan to Christian wine. He unravels the ancient Greek of the New Testament and with the world's most controversial priest. He spelunks into the catacombs under the streets of Rome to decipher the lost symbols of Christianity's oldest monuments. He breaches the secret archives of the Vatican to unearth manuscripts never before translated into English. And with leads from the archaeological chemists at the University of Pennsylvania and Massachusetts Institute for Technology, he unveils the first scientific data for the ritual use of psychedelic drugs in classical antiquity. It's amazing, and what it's dealing with is very controversial, but not without proof now. Sure. And this is an emerging phenomenon. And if anything, it does not try to, take away the flame of Christianity or faith or anything like that. It really just, you got to understand, we're not talking about you just tripping balls and thinking you're seeing something. Everybody has the same event. It's when you do like ayahuasca or DMT or other hallucinogenics, natural ones, obviously, there is LSD that was created to try to do the same effect. But in our ancient prehistory, these were being used only by the greatest, minds and the best of the best. And I want to go into that a little bit further here. I got some other stuff here pulled up.
It's really fascinating to listen to him talk about it too, during the interview and explain it, because it's just so mind blowing.
I wanted to dive into something that some of you might not know about, but here's the thing about it that you should know about. Imagine something being done every year for 2,000 years, okay? And think back, right? 2,000 years is the beginning of the church. It's, it's 20 AD, so to speak. But in that 2,000 years, you think some stuff's happened? How many things were happening 2,000 years ago that still happens this day? Well, probably the church.
Not a lot.
Not a lot else. Okay, there's not that much that's still going, and things change. But imagine that in BC times, as we know it, that for 2,000 freaking years, they did this every year until Rome had to mess it up. But and my thoughts with Rome and the church as I was talking. Okay, I've got my own little thoughts about that, but I want to talk about this Eleusinian mystery, and because it's really cool, and some people know it as the Greek mysteries. The rites of Eleusis, or the Eleusinian mysteries, were the secret rituals of the mystery school of Eleusis, and were observed regularly from 1600 BCE to 392 CE. Exactly what this mystical ritual was, no one knows, but why the ancient Greeks participated in it can be understood by the testimonials of the initiated. The Eleusinian mysteries, held each year at Eleusis, Greece, 14 miles northwest of Athens, were so important to the Greeks that until the arrival of the Romans, the Sacred Way, that was the name of the road from Athens to Eleusis, was the only road there that was not a goat path in all of central Greece. The mysteries celebrated the story of Demeter and Persephone, but as the initiated were sworn to secrecy on the pain of death as to the details of the ritual, we do not know what the form these rituals took. We do know now that those who participated in the mysteries were forever changed for the better, and they no longer feared death. The rituals were based on a symbolic reading of the story of Demeter and Persephone, and provided initiates with a vision of the afterlife so powerful that it changed the way they saw the world and their place in it. Participants were freed from the fear of death through the recognition that they were immortal souls, temporarily in mortal bodies. In the same way that Persephone went down to the land of the dead and returned to that of the living each year, so would every human being die only to live again on another plane of existence or in another body. Sound familiar? Demeter and Persephone is the most significant myth of ancient Greece, precisely because of its influence on this understanding. The rituals were enacted twice a year. There was the lesser mysteries, which took place in the spring, and the greater mysteries, which those who had been purified earlier took part in when September came. They walked the sacred way from Athens to Eleusis, calling for the core and reacting Demeter's search for her lost daughter, which is a cool story. You can go and read it. It's pretty interesting. At Eleusis, they would rest by the well Demeter had sat down by, would fast, and would then drink a barley and mint beverage called kykeon. It has been suggested that this drink was infused by the psychotropic fungus ergo, and this then heightened the experience and helped transform the initiate. After drinking the kykeon, the participants entered the telestrion, an underground theater where the secret ritual took place. Most likely it was a symbolic reenactment of the death and rebirth of Persephone, with which the initiates watched and perhaps took some part in. Whatever happened in the telestrion, those who entered in would come out the next morning radically changed. Virtually every important thinker and writer in antiquity, everyone who was anyone, was an initiate of the mysteries. Some of the testimonials, Plato, an initiate himself, as Socrates was before him, mentions the mystery specifically in his famous dialogue on the immortality of the soul. The rituals were eventually closed down by the Christian emperor Theodosius in 392 CE, as he saw the ancient rites as inspiring resistance to Christianity and the truth of Christ. So, you got to wonder, right?
Right. How Rome came in and...
Yeah, it happened for 2,000 years, and then all of a sudden they stop it. What kind of truth serum were they,
Right, so either they just didn't want people to be able to see that anymore. Like they wanted them to just do the church way and not their own way.
Control the narrative.
Right, exactly.
It's as old as power.
It is. I agree, and it kind of goes all into everything we've been talking about.
Anyway, it's very interesting, and the secrets to that has to be in the Vatican. What were the initiates going through? What were the drinks? What were
right?
And obviously, they make us believe from a very young age that these hallucinogenics are the devil themselves.
Right.
The worst thing ever. But that's not the experience. Anyone who ever does DMT or ayahuasca will tell you. Very short trip, and when they come out of that 15 minutes, they're changed forever.
And I've not heard a negative experience,
No.
really. I mean, I've heard sometimes it'll cause you to face, something inside you, but
The bad you.
yeah, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's a healing thing.
Yeah.
So,
And, because people a lot of times will not face like bad things about themselves. And, they just ignore it and go on. And I think that would be probably very healing. And it's, I don't know. I think it's really cool. I think that the whole story itself is cool. And I think that the Greek Mysteries is amazing. So it goes into that very big, you got to get this book. Okay. Follow my lead on it. And that's my list. But, we had some good fun there. I hope everybody's good natured about it. And,
yes.
But really, I just wanted to get to talking about that book. So, but speaking of good natured, my good natured companion over here.
That's me.
She is ready to give you some of the best news in the history of news. Not that it's good news. It's freaking cool news.
Just interesting.
A lot of interesting news this time. Listen, this is going to be the shizdiggle. This is good stuff. And I'm telling you, you're going to love it. Stick around. If you haven't already, call a friend, call a neighbor, get the dog in the room, whatever you have to do, all right? This is the one to share. This is the one to tell people about. This is the one to say, that's the greatest damn podcast I ever listened to in my whole damn life. Because it is. Right now, it's time for Stacey and some paranormal news.
Coming to you direct from the Sideshow Intercontinental Center for Strange Events and Odd Irregularities, she's more stealthy than a Cold War era spy. If it's from beyond the grave or above the sky, there's only one girl who looks under every rock to see. She's got your mysterious goodies and spells Stacey with an E. It's now time for Stacey Edwards and Paranormal News.
All right, let's get to the news. Okay, so let's start by talking about some life in space.
Life in space.
Yes, this is a topic that comes up quite often in the news, but this story is really cool, and it's about a study that was published recently about some possible signs of life on Venus.
Oh, wow.
And see, we've not heard anything about Venus. And of course, this started a huge debate, but let me just get into what these scientists found. So some scientists from MIT identified what they're calling phosphine in the atmosphere of Venus. Now, phosphine is something that was used on Earth as a chemical weapon during World War I. It's manufactured as an agricultural fumigant, but it's also made naturally by some species of bacteria, like by organisms. And as far as we know, on rocky planets like Earth and Venus, phosphine can only be made by life.
Wow.
It can only be made by some kind of microbe or by humans manufacturing it. And when they found this signature of phosphine in the atmosphere, of course, they immediately freaked out. At first, they thought maybe it was a mistake. But as they kept looking into it, they realized that it was not a mistake, that it shouldn't be in the atmosphere. It's extremely hard to make. The chemistry in the clouds should destroy the molecule before it can accumulate to this amount that they observed. But they did observe it there. And they claim it's too early to conclude that it is actually life, but that it is a very tantalizing thing that they need to study more. So, because they're saying if it really is floating through the cloud deck, it suggests that either alien life forms are, linking together this phosphorus and hydrogen atoms and creating this phosphine, or that there's some unanticipated thing going on that they know nothing about that's creating this phosphine in the absence of life, but they don't know how that could possibly be happening.
Wow.
So
that's a pretty big deal, man.
It is.
That's a pretty big deal. That's evidence of life on Venus. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but as a a little amateur astronomer myself.
Right.
There's a habitable area on Venus between like the second and third clouds, like cloud deck, right? Like somewhere in the middle of the atmosphere.
Now that I'm not sure. I know Venus is very Earth-like. It's just, I think there's so much atmosphere there.
Yeah, you can't. It's not habitable like on the ground.
No.
I think that it's habitable though somewhere in the cloud bank.
Ah, well, that would make sense then. Now it does say that the detection itself needs to be verified, that the phosphine fingerprint could possibly be a false signal introduced by the telescopes or by the data processing, and that they still need a lot of
Could it have anything to do with the
verification.
fact we've crashed satellites into it before?
I don't think so, because I don't think just a satellite would create the phosphine.
I'm just saying, I know for a fact that there's been several that we've crashed there.
Well, as interesting as it is, they were talking about how it needs to be verified and they need to, check the signature. I did find this other article that came out a few days later that said that a NASA probe may have found signs of life on Venus 40 years ago.
Oh my God.
So they've taken some data from an old NASA mission, and they say it may contain some overlooked evidence for the gas phosphine. So they've taken some archived data from the decades-old NASA mission to Venus, and they've looked through this particular data to double-check the detection. Like they're just doing anything they can, because it's a long time before they're going to be able to send more probes to Venus to double-check. And they said they were able to extract some data from the literature of this Pioneer mission that they did back in 1978. It was NASA's Pioneer Venus multiprobe, and it dropped like 4 probes into the planet's atmosphere back in December of 1978. And they had a little bit of the data from up above, like way out in the atmosphere, and they were able to look at a little bit of that, and they said that they may have spotted trace amounts of other molecules that they weren't expecting, including phosphine. Now the problem is they're not able to get to the rest of the data. There is more data because the probes went all the way down to the surface. But that data is currently, the physical copy is stored in the NASA Space Science Data Coordinated Archive at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center.
Right next to telemetry and how to get to the moon.
Exactly. Well, access to the archive is restricted because of the pandemic. So nobody can get in there to get the hard copy of the evidence to double check it. But if for some reason they were able to get all of that data from this previous mission, this Pioneer mission, and they were able to detect the phosphine, that would be the verification that they needed for this particular detection, because this was all data that was, 40 years ago. Mm-hmm. So they wouldn't have to wait to be able to send more probes to the planet to check it.
Right.
So interesting. I'm curious how long it's going to take them. I think they're trying to figure out how to get in there and get that. I don't know if they're going to allow them to be able to look at that data. But
I don't know. They're probably not. I mean, the same person that could prevent that could also tell us, hey, Bob, beep, 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 beep. Why don't you go on the news and, tell them where you're from and,
It's really interesting, though.
I bet Johnson's grandpa was upset. Like, it was, Johnson! You didn't tell me about what we found on Venus, sir. That was my grandfather. Johnson's grandfather! I mean, they've had a long line of Johnsons, obviously, missing things.
Clearly. Well, I feel like 40 years ago they weren't looking for that.
But why?
Supposedly.
Why not?
I don't know.
I mean, why even send a probe?
Right.
Spend billions of dollars.
And not, check every single thing.
Every possible sign of things that can't be made unless it's life.
I don't know. I don't know.
Anyway, very cool, though.
It is a very cool story. So let's continue on with our extraterrestrial life stories and talk about some Russian scientists that have recently come out claiming that they have found traces of extraterrestrial life. This is a really interesting story. So some Russian scientists said that they're going to publish photographs of fossilized ancient microorganisms that could exist at the time of the birth of the solar system.
Oh, wow.
And according to the scientist, the album with the pictures is planned to be released sometime in November. It's going to focus on a variety of fossils found inside the Orgueil meteorite. Now, this meteorite fell in France on May 14th, 1864. Mm-hmm. And they gathered like 20 stones. They were collected. They are perhaps the most studied meteorite in the world. And at the time, there were stories of organic matter similar to peat being found on it. Almost after its discovery, there was all these stories of this peat and its unusual composition, indicating that it was probably not from our solar system. But all of those stories were sort of squashed. Like, they didn't really let any of that out into the public. I think that it was like out of fear. They didn't want to interpret it that way, so not to frighten people.
Right.
So recently, these Russian scientists have taken an electron microscope and they decided to start looking into the little cracks of the meteorite, like way down deep in there where things couldn't have been picked up on Earth, or where things, just down in there where it had to be there before it fell. And they claim that they have found fossils. And they said traces of microorganisms, fossilized magnetotactics, which are just microorganisms that can only arise on an object with a magnetic field and water. So in other words, it would have to be on a planet and not just inside a comet.
Jesus.
And in addition, they also found fossils similar to like rod-shaped amoeba. They found like fossils of like little amoebas and things like that. And they're all on the inner cleavages of the body of this meteorite. Now, back in 1965, this particular meteorite had like a hoax. People called it the Orgui hoax. And supposedly in 1965, a fragment of the meteorite that had been kept in a sealed glass jar since it was recovered suddenly appeared to have like the seed on it. And after they investigated it, they figured out that the seed was from some European rush, which is like a plant, and it was glued onto it and covered in coal dust. And they never figured out who hoaxed that. Like, it was just this huge hoax, and they never figured out who did it. But they also talk about the works of this man named Richard Hoover. Richard Hoover was a former NASA scientist, and he was the author of this so-called Hoover paper, and it was published back in 2011. And he claimed in 2011 that he had found evidence of fossils in numerous meteorites. And it was very controversial at the time. The journal was criticized, and NASA even disassociated itself from him.
Wow.
For him saying that. But now these Russian scientists are claiming the exact same thing and claim they have the pictures, they have the proof, and they will publish it in November.
Jeez.
So it's very exciting. And if you go to the story, I think they give like a couple of just teaser photographs, like samples and things that you can look at. But if they really found what they said they found, I mean, that's pretty straightforward.
Oh yeah.
And
huge.
especially since this other NASA scientist claimed the same thing, back in 2011. So I feel bad for people like that are discredited and laughed at, and everybody's disassociated, and then years later it comes out that they were right.
Oh, absolutely.
Isn't that awful?
I mean, it happens too much too.
It does. All right, so let's move on, shall we?
That's such a crazy story.
It really is. I can't wait until I have that bookmarked, because I want to find out exactly what day in November they're going to release all that, because I'm really interested to see exactly what they found in that meteorite.
Absolutely. I mean, that one's got me perplexed, because I mean, that's just such a damn big story.
It really is. Let's continue on with the space. Let's talk about Mars for a minute. And this one's just kind of a cool story. So ESA's Mars Express spacecraft has discovered several ponds of liquid water buried under the ice in the south polar region of Mars. Now, they were there already to look at some water that they knew was already underneath the ice there. But when they were there doing this radar with their radar instrument, they call it MARSIS, Mars Advanced Radar for Subsurface and Ionosphere Sounding. It had already revealed the one underground reservoir. It is now revealed, after analyzing it again, 3 new ponds have been discovered. And it's a large lake about 20 by 30 kilometers, and it's surrounded by several smaller ponds. And they think that the water's very salty because it, has remained liquid even though it's so cold. And it's just one of those things where you have these subglacial lakes that could possibly have life in it. They mention that all the time. And they even talk about the subglacial lakes that are on Earth that harbor their own unique ecosystems. So this is just another thing that they're putting forward about Mars, where here they had this one bit of information, but now, oh, hey, there's a lot more than we thought there was, and it's just like these ones we have on Earth that could have their own ecosystems.
Right.
You never know. It's like they're just setting you up there.
Oh yeah, more
all
and more
these
and
different
more
stories.
It's nuts, isn't it?
It is. It really is.
I mean, it just like you said. I mean, it just seems like every day that we get something, something more. So a little sign of, hey, there's life out there.
Right. Eventually, one of these days, it's going to be, hey, we found it.
Yeah.
And everybody's going to be okay. We were expecting that.
Yeah, I mean,
cool.
we're very much conditioned. we're conditioned right now.
Yes.
Yeah, very much so.
So the last thing I'll say about the space with the planets, this one was just kind of a cool story. You know how we look for all the exoplanets, and they've discovered so many of these extra exoplanets.
Oh, yeah.
This news story came out where they have identified 24 potentially super habitable planets.
Super habitable.
Super habitable. That's hard to say. That have conditions that may be more suited to host life than Earth is. That's what they're claiming. Now, these are just potentially super habitable. They haven't figured out if they are or aren't. They have this criteria that they look at for these planets, and out of the 24, none of them meet all of the criteria, but one of them has like 4 characteristics, which is more than they've ever seen, which signals that it may indeed be more suited for life than even Earth is. And the characteristics are just different things like surface, size, composition, temperature, geology, the orbit, rotation, things that you would expect that you would need to have life on it. So very cool that they found a whole bunch of new ones, and even one that might be a better Earth than what we have.
That's crazy, dude.
You never know. All right, shall we move on?
We shall.
All right, so let's move on to this next story. It's kind of about UFOs. It's about Japan. So this is about the statement that was made a few weeks ago by the Japanese Defense Ministry, where they've unveiled their protocol for encountering UFOs. Now, I know you've heard about this. They did a statement, and the defense minister, Taro Kono, he has ordered the self-defense forces to follow this new procedure, standing orders, to record and photograph any such objects that they encounter or that enter Japanese airspace, and to take steps to analyze the sightings.
Wow.
And so they made this big announcement. It was a press conference where they talked about how they were going to put this protocol into effect now for their military.
Right.
Now, they just wanted to have the rules in place in the event that anybody encountered some kind of unconventional aircraft. Now, they claim their public official position, and this is from like a couple years ago, they claim that there's no confirmation has ever been made of the existence of UFOs, and they consider that they've never even had any reports. They don't claim to have ever had any kind of UFO encounters or reports or anything like that.
Liar.
Now, there's another article that came out about this same protocol that they've done. And they talk about, this other article says that he has ordered them, to do all the thing with the UFOs. But they also talked to a man named Greg Sullivan, who is the director of the Japan Center for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. And he said that is not true, that they should be aware of at least 6 alleged encounters between Japanese pilots and UFOs, all of which he knows for a fact have been reported to the government. And he even claimed of a number of civilian UFO sightings that have also been reported. He did claim that previously no protocols were in place and there was no official way of reporting these incidents, and he's hoping that that's going to change now that since nobody would investigate them.
Right.
But he also talked about one of the people that he interviewed is a man named Mamoru Sato, who served as a wing commander in the Air Self-Defense Force, and he took it upon himself, this wing commander, to collect testimonies from other military pilots that had encountered UFOs. And when he tried to put these forward, he said that the reports were met with ridicule and the authorities refused to take him seriously. And among some of these incidents was a sighting of a flying saucer at close range before the craft disappeared at rapid speed. And one time there was an entire squadron of Japanese pilots on the ground at an air base that witnessed a series of highly reflective craft that were also moving at a speed beyond the capabilities of conventional aircraft. So the stories are there, the reports are there, and they claim that the government did know about it. They just won't admit it.
Right.
And of course, there's your favorite story.
My favorite one, yeah. This
Yes.
is actually one of my favorite UFO encounters anyway.
Yes. The
overall.
Japan Airlines Flight 1628 incident.
Yes.
Yes, so this happened November 17th, 1986. It involved a Japanese Boeing 747-200F cargo aircraft. So the aircraft was en route from Paris to Narita International Airport near Tokyo. And on the part of the flight from Reykjavik to Anchorage, like right there over
Love
Alaska,
Reykjavik.
the crew witnessed first two identified objects to their left that kind of cut them off and went in front of them. And they had like these rectangular thrusters. And I mean, even the pilot was like, I could feel the heat on my face from these things in front of me. But then a third, much, much larger disc-shaped object started trailing them. You can find the transmissions that they made with the air traffic control, because this was actually whistleblown by John Callahan, a former FAA head of accidents and investigations. And he does an interview where he talks about this whole sighting. I mean, the sighting lasted 50 minutes, and they have footage, they have proof, they have this talking back and forth, they have radar footage, they have all kinds of documentation where they have it on there for like 20 minutes.
Callahan is one of the best ever. Mm-hmm. If you went to a UFO con in the 90s of any repute, it was probably Callahan there.
Right.
He's just one of those guys, man. And if you go back and watch some of the old interviews that I love, the ones from the early 90s, late 80s, you got him on there, and he's just one of those cats that sounds legit, you know. And he was a chief investigator. And, you know, some of his best stories are being in the White House, and he had to take all the stuff up there, all the radar and everything. He had to show them all. They were all really excited.
Right.
And they asked him for it. And my favorite thing is he's like, they didn't ask me for what I had.
Right.
They just asked me for what I had there.
They said, we need to take everything you have here. And he was like, okay.
Yeah.
He's like, they didn't ask me what I had on my desk.
Yeah. Or down in the car. Or,
so he just kept it,
and,
you know.
But, you know, it's as good of a story as you're ever going to get. It couldn't have been anything else. It was too huge. It was too gigantic. The Japanese pilot, you know, never changed his story.
Oh, and he was like 30 years experience.
Yeah.
Thousands of hours of flight time. I mean, he knew what he was looking at.
Yeah, I think it was 20,000 hours. Something crazy.
Yeah, it was something crazy.
It was stupid.
He's been flying forever.
And listen, the way it is in Japan, you're not just going to come out and say you saw a UFO, because it's different to being discredited here.
Right, right.
It's dishonored, okay? But if you're telling the truth, you're telling the truth. You have all the honor you need. And I'm telling you, this was amazing. This was an amazing, amazing sighting. And it's one of the ones that you can't call it anything else. So there it is. And so Japan, the real story here is we've strung together several weeks of stories that only a show like this where we, you know, had a vacation, could we do something like this? Because, you know, normally we go week by week, right? And we might notice after 3 weeks and go, hey, we just talked about that. But where we had the news we were collecting, and anything like this, we don't go to just some catch-all site and get news from it. We look it all up, you know, ourselves. And we, you know, it's just the way we do it. We use keywords and everything else and find our own news. But there's been week after week, you know, you go back a month and there's this, you know, story, and in 2 weeks and 1 week. And so there's something happened with Japan. All right. The evidence points to the fact that something happened. I think there was some big encounter personally. And I think that they're like, okay, this is a threat. We're going to have to do something about this. We need all the information we can from our pilots. And this is coming out. They work closely with the United States. Obviously, they're an ally. So there could be the fact that the U.S. government has been like, all right, guys, look, we're going to have this come out. So you might want to be on the right side of history. Right. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
It's worth watching.
It's crazy. Keep your eyes open. It's very crazy.
Yes. All right, so let's move on now to a story about cattle mutilation.
Oh, yeah, that's always nice for the kiddies.
So we've had a lot of stories now from Oregon, and this is just another one to add to the list. So this is a story about a man named Fee Stubblefield. And he was doing his rounds, and he was checking.
Wait, you can't just say a name like Fee Stubblefield.
That's his name, Fee, F-E-E, Stubblefield.
Oh, well, it's a great name.
It's an awesome name.
It is.
He was checking on his cattle near Dixie Ranch Road outside of Ukiah when he saw something sitting in the thicket. And when he approached, he noticed it was a dead cow lying on its side in the dirt. At first, he didn't really think too much of it. But when he looked closer, he said it didn't really look right. He said the skin around the cow's mouth was sliced away, and its tongue, glands, and sex organs had been cleanly removed. And he said a piece of the cow's ear was cut off and placed on its neck, which is very strange. He said it was a very unusual cut. There was no blood. There was no footprints or tracks as evidence of someone traveling through the area. So at first he thought maybe it was wolves, and he called the authorities to get some answers. And the Oregon State Police responded, and they confirmed that it was a mutilation kill. Now, he said that they got lucky because they found the cow within a couple of days of when it had been killed. So it really gave them some good evidence. But he said what was more disturbing was now that they've seen this and identified it as a mutilation kill, they discovered that they had two other ones that they didn't realize were mutilation kills until they saw the state of this one. Now, neither one of those cows was found quite as timely as this one, but he said that they both were found with their tongues and genitals carefully removed. And the other two potential mutilations occurred within the last 6 months, so this year. And one was one of his cows that was found in an extremely remote location, unconnected to where they were now. And the other one was found on his property, but it belonged to another rancher. So it's just really strange. Of course, the police are investigating, and they have no idea. It shares a lot of similarities to the thousands of other cattle mutilations you get. And it just seems weird that this year, particularly in Oregon, we've had so many. It's sort of like just a uptick now in Oregon with this cattle mutilations. It's very strange.
I don't know. I mean, it's always weird. Cattle mutilations themselves. I mean, again, we've documented the fact that, we never found the hoaxer. I mean,
right.
You would think there'd be some kind. I mean, that's such a hell of a hoax to try to pull out.
It is, and it's such a widespread thing. It's very strange.
Yeah, that's real, and it's terrifying.
It is. It is. But to kind of go along with the story, they're having this problem over in France with horse mutilations. And this is something that I saw a few weeks ago. I didn't really pay a lot of attention to it because it didn't seem like the same thing, but it has gotten a lot stranger. Now, it turns out that the police are just completely baffled. They have no idea. It's macabre attacks that include slashing and worse. It says most often an ear, usually the right ear, has been cut off, and they're currently investigating 153 cases, but 30 of those are where the horse actually was killed. A lot of these, the horses aren't killed, they're just being slashed or deformed in some way. It's really very strange. But of the 30 that were deaths, the ears are cut off, the eyes are removed, and the animal is emptied of its blood. This is weird because you don't usually hear about horse mutilations.
No.
And they claim that it is very strange because, if you have a horse in a pasture, it's going to be really hard to catch that horse. It's not like you can just walk up to a horse that doesn't know you and it's just going to stand there and let you cut its ears off and dig its eyes out.
Right.
So a lot of these horses that didn't die, it's just they have no idea what's happening. And they did have one suspect where they released a description of a man that they thought someone had seen near one of the attacks. They did arrest a man, but then eventually had to let him go because he had an alibi and it wasn't him. But it's just a very strange thing. The whole incident has now spread into Sweden, and it's starting to happen in Sweden as well. They're having horse mutilations there. Same conditions as the one in France. Ears cut off, eyes taken out. And sometimes the cause of death is strange. Sometimes it's shock, or I think in one of the France cases, the horse was run to death. I mean, it's just very strange and odd kind of mutilation.
Cut your ear off, you might run to death.
I guess.
I mean, horses do that anyway.
No cause of death has been given in the Swedish cases, but it's not a typical mutilation thing that you hear about. Normally it's cattle mutilation.
No,
and the horse thing's very strange.
It sounds gruesome.
It is. And they feel like it's some kind of ritual thing maybe, but it's so widespread, like you said. It's not like, it would be really hard to undertake that if it was just like one group of people.
Yeah, it would be.
So far
150 some damn horses, man.
Yeah, and 30 of them, some of them drained of blood. I feel like maybe that's not the same thing. Like maybe those 30 are different than the other ones that are just being slashed.
Happened at the same time. It sounds like maybe some kind of cryptid, man. It sounds like some kind of vampiric chupacabra type thing.
It could be. Just really strange. It's definitely not the kind of story you normally come across. So. 2020,
y'all. 2020.
Exactly. All right, so let's move on and let's talk about the sudden mass die-off of birds in the West.
Not again.
Yes, and so it's a sudden and potentially unprecedented mass die-off of migratory birds in New Mexico and elsewhere. And they're talking like hundreds of thousands of birds.
Wow.
They say perhaps even millions. They have no idea.
Somebody got too close to the cloaked UFO.
Well, it says the phenomenon, which appears to have begun in late August, saw large numbers of dead animals discovered in like White Sands, New Mexico.
You could probably stop right there.
They said it's also similar occurrences in Doña Ana County, Jemez Pueblo, Roswell, Socorro, and elsewhere. And it's not just contained in New Mexico. There's some, Arizona, Colorado, Texas. Tons and tons of birds just laying all over the road. It includes swallows, wood peewees, warblers, the ones that migratory birds. Now,
there's a bird called a wood peewee.
There is wood peewees. It could be pewees.
No, it's got to be peewees. I want a wood peewee. All right, go ahead.
So they say they have very little data. There's a theory that the fact that all the fires on the West Coast and a combination with like a freak cold front that they had could have contributed to some of the deaths, which is true. In some of the cases, they claim that the birds were extremely emaciated, like they were starving. Other than that, they seemed like they were in good condition, other than being dead.
Right.
And that they don't really understand what
other
would be
than
causing
being dead.
Well, it says the birds seem to be in relatively good condition.
You can't sneak
except that they're dead.
Sneak that in like that.
But in other words, they didn't have a lot of fat reserves. It's
right.
like they just had been flying and flying until they couldn't fly anymore.
Right.
So very sad. And but it is crazy that there are so many. I mean, you expect that kind of thing occasionally, but millions.
Well, I know what that is.
What is that?
Well, it's obviously, you're down there in White Sands. You're down there where the UFOs come and see us. And every time the UFOs are around, what do we lose? We lose the ability to have a compass work, It's just one of the things, right?
Right.
I'd say they're screwing around with something down there. They're doing some kind of top secret stuff that's really screwed them up. And these migratory birds, which they were all migratory birds, were probably flying around in damn circles or something until they died.
It could have been. Well, we've had those stories recently about the whole magnetic thing in the Earth being all screwed up and them not understanding and having to change all of our navigational stuff.
Right.
So that could be messing with the animals
totally.
too. So who knows? But there is another story here from Russia.
Oh.
And apparently there was doomsday panic because there were dead crows falling from the sky above a city that is a secretive nuclear city.
I wonder what caused that.
So a mysterious mass die-off of crows above a secretive nuclear Russian city has sent the internet into meltdown. Some footage emerged of dead birds suddenly falling from the sky onto the roads below in the city of Balakovo. And supposedly the incident is under official investigation, and some experts are trying to tie the mass death to some kind of avian flu. They went there and took some samples of the birds' corpses, things like that, but others have suggested that it could be linked to the city's best-known feature, its large nuclear power plant. With one comment, the most popular comment on the story that was posted on the Russian social networking site, claims that at the beginning of Chernobyl, all the birds died.
Yeah.
So, who knows? It's scary to think that that's happening in a nuclear city.
Again, I have to take the UFO route to this. So UFOs are also well known to be around nuclear installations, toying with them, turning things on and off, screwing with them in every capacity. Russia would never tell us anyway.
Right.
But I do think that a lot of bird death could totally not just be caused by the navigational skills and the things being turned off by a UFO, but also by the radiation of a UFO, which we know is also a thing, or the heat or the path or whatever.
Right. Well, and these aren't migratory birds. We're talking about crows here. We're not talking about, birds that are just going to fly and get lost. We're talking about smart birds.
Yeah. I wonder if there's any survivors that we could talk to.
I don't know. Just to give them a pen and be like, could you draw me a picture of what happened? I don't know. Very strange. So something to keep an eye out for, though.
Absolutely.
All right. So let's move on to a ghost story.
Oh, I love ghost
stories. This is about a California family that claims a child star murderer has haunted their home for 30 years.
Oh, crap.
Yes. So it's a family that lives in a home where 10-year-old Judith Barcy was murdered in her bed by her father. His name was Joseph Barcy. And then he went on to kill his wife, Maria, and then himself. And this happened in 1988. Now, this whole story came out on this new show that's on Quibi. And it's called Murder House Flip, which I think is an awesome idea. They take these murder houses and they redo them so that the people don't feel as squeamish in their home.
Yeah.
So this particular house, they claim, had a really bad energy when they moved in. And they even talked to the daughter. She claimed that when they moved in, she was 10 years old. And she would say weird things would happen. The garage door would open and close, and she had cold spots in her room. And she didn't really sleep good at night because she felt like somebody was watching her all the time. And she started having an imaginary friend. And her imaginary friend's name was Joseph.
Oh my God.
And when they moved in, they had no idea about the history of this house. It just turned out later on, after they moved in, that a neighbor told them that that was the house where Judith Barcy lived, and that, what had happened with her father killing her and his wife and himself in the home. So they claim that all these weird things would happen, and eventually they decided to get some help after living there for so long. And so the interior designers came in, they focused on the area of the home where the murder specifically took place, and they just sort of redid the whole house. Now, I haven't seen the episode. It comes in, it's 3 parts, like 3 parts of the episode, and I guess you can watch and you get the whole background story and you get the whole flip of the house.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool, but it's also strange, that he the ghost of Joseph went after the 10-year-old, because that's how old his daughter was when he killed her. And he's probably trying to make up for,
Possibly, because she didn't say that he was mean to her.
I'm sure he wasn't.
Just that he was her imaginary friend.
He's living in denial.
It's also interesting that he's the one that's there in the house and not the daughter or the wife.
Good.
He's the one that's stuck there. But that show seems really interesting. It's just got 1 season up, but they do focus on 4 different locations. That location, there's one, the home where Frederick Hengel dismembered and cooked his wife in the home. They have the home of William Bradford, where he shot and killed his wife in their living room. And then there's the home of serial killer Dorothea Puente, who poisoned 7 people in her boarding house and buried them in the backyard.
Yep, I know that one.
Yes, so those are all the locations that are being flipped on the first season. If you have Quibi or you're interested in it and you want to watch it, it's an interesting idea for a show.
Oh, yeah.
But I thought that was kind of a cool story about her imaginary friend, and creepy.
Oh, very creepy.
And the age.
Very creepy.
Yes, the age thing.
Always listen to your kids when they tell you about their imaginary friends.
I'm telling you.
Always.
Yes, I agree. Don't just brush that stuff off. All right, so let's move on. This is a story from China, and it's about one of your favorite things, the city in the sky.
Oh, my God.
I brought you some pictures here.
Oh, I love it.
So, footage of what they're calling a Hogwarts-style castle has appeared to float in the sky, and it's caused, of course, a sensation on the Chinese social media. So, they filmed some footage, and some people claim that it looks kind of like Hogwarts because you see there's towers, but they say that, it's one of those, they always claim it's the mirage thing. And they say it's this illusion that happens in humid weather. And they're saying that it's possibly this apartment complex that's a few kilometers away. I included a picture of that as well, so you could compare the image in the sky and the apartment building. They are somewhat similar. I don't think the position of the towers is correct, though.
No, it's not exact. I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, you can't see it from all different angles, but I still don't think that it's exactly right. But the whole thing in the sky is just so crazy and unusual. I love the way that it looks, and it just kills me that people in China are still amazed by this.
Yeah, I mean,
I would be, I suppose.
there's a lot of things in China. Unfortunately, the way China is, we don't get the full skinny on everything. But, there's Egyptian type pyramids in China that are completely in secretive land. If you go looking up the pyramids of China, you'll probably find some stuff on it. And that's just where it starts. I mean, there is so much incredible prehistory type stuff there that there's a lot of magic. That's all I'm saying. It doesn't surprise me there's some floating cities.
Right. I love the floating cities. I think sometimes they really are cities.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes they're probably mirages, but sometimes they're really cities.
Well, I mean, we've seen it over something that is very modern, and it was a castle with the traditional castle type stuff. So
right, like I don't think every time they can say, "Oh, that looks like this building." Like I don't think you have that information all the time.
No, I think it's a time rip or something.
Oh, that's a good point. Could be.
Yeah,
like very thin. All right, so let's talk about a few really cool discoveries. And the first one is about some remains of an Ice Age cave bear that was found preserved in the Russian Arctic. So this story is really cool because this is the first time that they found a preserved Ice Age cave bear. And they claimed that this bear that was revealed by melting permafrost was discovered with its teeth and even its nose intact.
Wow.
So previously, they've only been able to discover the bones of cave bears. These became extinct about 15,000 years ago. And this one is immaculately preserved. They are so excited to be able to study it. All the internal organs are in place. They just keep talking about the nose, including the nose. That must be something that goes first. And a preliminary analysis indicated that the adult bear lived 22,000 to 39,500 years ago. And of course, they still have to carry out some radiocarbon analysis to determine the precise age. But it was found by some reindeer herders. And
wait till they find its armor and the fact that it used to fight for this little girl.
And they're just very excited because they've not been able to, study an Ice Age cave bear before. Now, this, of course, goes right along with the mammoth that I discovered. I'm sure they're going to probably try and clone this too. They have been making progress on the woolly mammoth that they've been using the CRISPR genome engineering on. They've been able, I think they said to date, a number of the genes have been successfully rewritten into Asian elephant cell lines, and they've generated things like mammoth-like cells, like hemoglobin, extra hair growth, fat production, things like that. Like, they don't have it all done, but they're getting there. So I feel like we're going to see a mammoth in our lifetime.
Oh, I'm sure.
Possibly a cave bear, which may not be a good idea. I feel like cave bears are a little more aggressive.
Well, what the problem is, they don't realize they talk yet. Wait till they make the first one. It's like, hey, what's going on here? This is really weird. My name's B, and
I was just in this cave. I got really cold.
Yeah, I feel like I'm an uncle. I don't know. That's an inside joke for the family.
It is.
And our little pet bee or bear that we've had forever.
Yes.
Aries little bee. She don't do the voice anymore much.
No.
She does it for me to make me feel good.
She's had him since she was 4.
Yeah.
And he's had the voice since she was 4.
Yeah, and told the little adult jokes.
Kyler's picked up the voice, though.
Yeah.
It's kind of cute. He really likes it. Hello. It's very funny. All right, so let's move on to Knights Templar discovery.
There we go.
So a secret Knights Templar crypt was just found beneath a Polish church, and they claim it could contain the Holy Grail.
The Holy what?
The Holy Grail.
Okay. The Holy Grail. It's a little known artifact in Christianity.
I'm just going to leave that in.
The Holy Grail.
The Holy Grail. Oh, wow. Okay.
It's okay. I was picturing tonight on History Channel's crypts.
So this is this.
We talked to Sir Hamelot, and as he shows us his crypt. Well, this one's kind of secret, but I like it quite a bit. And anyway.
So it's the St. Stanislaus Chapel in Chworskan, in Poland. I don't know how to say that. It was built by the Knights Templar in 1232.
Yeah.
And they've had this ongoing archaeological dig that began back in 2004. And last year, they used ground penetrating radar. And with this ground penetrating radar, they have uncovered that there is a hidden crypt that has secret tunnels and the remains of numerous Knights Templar.
Wow.
And they claim that it could also be the resting place of the Holy Grail. Because there are the secret tunnels, you have no idea what they have hidden down there or anything. And considering that they built this chapel, who knows what they've put down in that basement? Nobody's been down there.
Wouldn't it be funny if they dug through it and they popped out in Oak Island?
It could be. Supposedly, this particular place, there's no more than 100 residents there. So it's very quiet. It's uneventful. But they claim the GPR doesn't lie, and it has indicated that there's a number of crypts, human remains, and an underground tunnel that lies beneath this church. Now, it says, according to legends and medieval documents, there was a well in the vicinity of the chapel, and the rumor has it that the well served as an entrance to a secret tunnel. So it still requires an exhaustive archaeological investigation, but just the fact that they found it under there is very, very interesting.
How cool is that?
Yes.
I mean,
even if it's not the Holy Grail, I feel like there's going to be something down there.
It might be the Holy Grail.
It could be.
You never know.
I think that's even more rare.
Oh, it is. It is.
Yeah.
And, it's like the Holy Greer, remember Pam Grier from Buck Rogers.
I don't remember her as well as I think you do.
Wilma. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's very awesome. It's cool that, man, you gotta love the Knights Templar and their secrets. I mean, all these tunnels and craziness that they had. It's
hiding stuff. I know. So secretive. All right. So one more discovery. And this is one we've talked about before, the legendary lost Amber Room. They have not discovered it.
Damn it.
But there's a newly discovered sunken Nazi ship. And this is actually pretty compelling, I think. So they've been looking for this ship. It's called the Karlsruhe, and a team of divers have been looking for it for some time, and they managed to locate the craft off the coast of Poland back in April. So when they were announcing their find this past week, they explained that the sizable vessel had departed from East Prussia in 1945 as part of a massive evacuation mission by the Nazis as Russian forces closed in on the area. And interestingly enough, the ship's point of departure was the city of Königsberg, which just so happens to be the last place that the Amber Room was seen. So when the dive team went down, they noticed that the newly discovered shipwreck is practically untouched, and that among the 360 tons of cargo still contained inside the vessel are many crates with unknown contents that have not ever been opened.
Wow.
So it's very intriguing. They say they don't want to get excited, but if the Germans were wanting to take the Amber Room across the Baltic Sea, this particular ship would have been their last chance to do so.
Wow.
So there's a very good possibility that it's contained in there with the crates that are down there. Just the fact that there are all those crates down there with unknown contents that have not been touched since 1945 is just unbelievable.
Oh, it's so. I mean, it could be magical weapons.
It could be, It could be anything.
It's the Nazis, man.
Yes, so it's very exciting.
That's awesome.
Yes. That one's actually a pretty interesting, it really could be there.
Well, yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. But it's so cool because, I love the Amber Room. I mean, if you guys don't know about the Amber Room, you need to go look it up.
Yes.
It's just freaking awesome. But what is also awesome is the crap that the Nazis had stolen and collected, and magical alleged magical weapons,
right. That's what they were after.
Yeah,
they were just after
that's
that
all
stuff.
they were after because they knew I mean,
they knew the secrets.
Staff of power, baby. Staff of power.
All right, so I have a few more stories here, and this one is about Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers.
Yes. So Aaron Rodgers was doing the Pat McAfee show. He was doing an interview, Pat McAfee, and I think they asked him if he had ever seen a UFO. And that's an interesting question. And he claims he has, and he shared his experience. He said that 15 years ago, on a snowy night, he saw something in the sky. It was orange and moving in the clouds from left to right. And he claims was that after it was out of sight, it says we were frozen, looking at each other, wondering what the hell just happened. And then 30 seconds after that, they heard fighter jets. And he said 3 fighter jets appeared to be chasing whatever it was that he saw. So he thought that was really interesting. And he said from then on, he started researching and looking into what they may have seen. And he said he really got into researching it because it was a story that he couldn't explain. And he was so interested into it, and it just changed his whole outlook on that kind of thing.
Paradigm
we know
shift.
all
Yeah.
about that.
Well, let me tell you about something cool too while I'm doing this. Something strange and cool at the same time. Just because of how it collides so much in my world. So, well, people know about me and wrestling. There's a group of wrestling that I've loved since its debut ever, and that's Ring of Honor. So Ring of Honor has recently returned after the pandemic, and because there's an old rule, if you can't beat something, you need to be different, right?
Right.
So if you can't compete with like WWE and their production or AEW and its star power, then you need to do something different. So they've went back to their roots, and you would love this, but they've got a new show called it's Ring of Honor Wrestling, but they're doing this pure tournament. So it's pure wrestling and it's pro wrestling, but kind of it's no gimmicks. They make it like a real sports contest. It gives their records, their backgrounds, their heights, weights, all this stuff, and then they do it with the confines of an actual contest, and it's stiff as can be. It's I mean, they really go for it. Some people in the wrestling world that have watched it says this is the wrestling show you can watch, and even if somebody watches it's not a wrestling fan,
Right.
Can watch it, enjoy it, and there's no way they can make fun of you for what you're watching because it comes off like such an athletic contest.
Right.
And so it's really cool. People are like, that's the best wrestling show in forever. As far as a new wrestling show, I think you'll love it. But anyway, I've got them all on tape. So what I found out, though, is in their new relaunch, they're also doing some YouTube shows and, this and that, whatever. But guess what? We'll be debuting this Saturday, every Saturday at noon on Ring of Honor's YouTube, which would be, I think it's ROH Wrestling YouTube. They have a new show, a new weekly show, and it's called ROH Strange.
Oh.
When I first heard about ROH Strange, I thought maybe it was profiling ring rats. But it's not. ROH Strange every week talks to the Ring of Honor wrestlers about their paranormal encounters.
That's awesome. I think somebody I know
Came
had
up with
an
that.
idea like that recently.
Sure did.
Yeah.
Sure did. I was going to do road stories because every wrestler has a paranormal road story.
They do.
And that's the craziest thing ever.
That's so crazy. We'll have to listen to that.
Yeah, it's a show. It's a TV show. We can watch it.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. I wonder who's doing it.
I don't know who's going to be doing it, but it's really cool. I thought it was awesome, and it really is.
Awesome.
I'm glad somebody's doing it because obviously I haven't done the idea, and I believe that muses drop those ideas.
I feel like wrestlers are an untapped source for odd stories. As much as they travel and as many buildings they're in, especially independent wrestlers that go in the older buildings, the VFWs, the things like that. They have so many strange stories, and the traveling and the seeing of the UFOs. I really feel like that's an untapped source, so that's going to be a really interesting show.
Well, I mean, it's just like, okay, so everybody knows about the Ghost Brothers episode in Newport, Tennessee at the Cocke County War Memorial. Well, some of the best stories about that, when I went there with a bit of fear in my heart because Nature Boy Buddy Landell, who has since passed on, and I got to work with him many times. He was a legend to me. He was a great human being, but he was a wrestler in Jim Crockett's Mid-Atlantic Wrestling, most famously in the 1980s. But he wrestled at the War Memorial, at the Newport Cocke County War Memorial, and Buddy was also a preacher. So, but anyway, he went into the War Memorial, and he had to wrestle, and he had to leave. He walked in the locker room, and he said, "The devil's in this building," and and he freaking left, and he wouldn't go back.
Well, he was right, wasn't he?
Yeah. That was told to me by Bo James himself, who was the best friends of Buddy. He said the devil's in this building. So,
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah. So, well, I just thought that was an interesting story about Aaron Rodgers, just because of the whole getting interested in it, because he saw it. And, he did claim that he had other interesting experiences, which he didn't actually talk about. But
it'd be funny if Brett Favre came out and said, had a better experience. Like, just like slightly better.
Right.
People in Green Bay could be like, Aaron Rodgers' experience is pretty cool, but.
Yeah, but he'll never be a Brett Favre.
Not like Brett's.
Oh, wow, that's funny. Okay.
I actually think Aaron's amazing.
Yeah, I think so. All right, so let's talk about some orca attacks that have left scientists baffled.
Us attacking orcas or them attacking us?
Them attacking us.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yes, because the reports are highly unusual. And it claims that some of the incidents involved sustained ramming for over an hour.
Oh, hey.
You know how terrifying that is?
Yeah, I do.
When the whale rams your boat.
Sorry.
So scientists admit that they're baffled by a rise in aggressive orca activity, with the whales ramming boats along the Spanish and Portuguese coasts. And it says the number of reported incidents involving orcas has risen over the summer months, with researchers noting that the interactions between the whales and the boats are not usual, and that the level of aggression displayed is highly unusual.
Well, one of the orcas were actually, they're very smart creatures.
Right.
And one of them was reached for a comment, and he said it was just complete misunderstanding. It was a peaceful protest.
Mm-hmm. Peaceful. They say that there's 2 of the 5 whale pods that are common to the area have actually learned to take tuna from fishermen drop lines. And sometimes they sustain injuries doing so. And sometimes young orcas get caught, they get hooked. Things happen to them, but still the events are considered unusual. Like this level of aggressiveness, even with them getting hurt or not having food, is still aggressive. And even marine biologists that have studied these orca whales for years and years are just astonished by some of the tales that they're hearing. Like whales, they take out pieces of fiberglass rudders. They, like I said, have been ramming the boats. One skipper reported that the force nearly dislocated the helmsman's shoulder and spun the whole yacht like 120 degrees. I mean, orcas are killer whales. There is a scary movie out there about an orca. I remember seeing it when I was a kid. So it's very strange. A lot of the boats are getting tipped sideways almost, and who knows what would happen if you actually fell in the water.
Well,
I mean, it's terrifying.
It's time to keep the harpoon with you again.
I'm telling you, but it's just unusual these are whales that they've studied they've seen them grow up. It's 10, 15, 20 years. They've watched these whales evolve, and all of a sudden they're just being super aggressive.
Well, there's a good chance that there's chemicals in the water now.
Very true.
With pollution and people that dump crap in the water, these big companies, they're probably just hyped up on drugs.
It could be.
I mean, really.
Coke whales. Is that what they are?
Well, if they were Coke whales, they'd be much skinnier. It'd be like, what the hell does that dolphin look like a whale for?
All right, so
they're losing their teeth.
Last story from Racine, Wisconsin.
Scratching a whole lot. It's like that whale's been on the side of the boat scratching his back for an hour now. I don't know what's going on with it. Coke whales.
I was just saying that because then they do that about the alligators.
Be hanging out at the
or meth. It's meth alligators.
Hanging out,
meth whales.
Hanging out beside the island, like trying to turn orca tricks.
All right, so let's go on to this last story. This is from
See my blowhole.
Racine, Wisconsin. So Racine police are looking to determine what it is this gentleman found on the beach. So Jimmy Senda was combing the beach. He collects sea glass and random stuff. He likes to do artwork at home with the stuff that he finds on the beach.
Oh, he's that guy.
And he happened to find this weird square package wrapped in aluminum foil, and it had a pink rubber band around it, and he thought, that's pretty weird. So he opened it up, and he said it looked kind of like a chicken breast, but he sort of moved it around a little, got a really good look at it, and it was a brain.
What?
A brain. And there were flowers and what appears to be paper with Mandarin characters printed on it were also found in the package with the brain.
Where was this at?
So Racine, Wisconsin.
Of course it was.
So he found some city employees working nearby and asked them what they thought it was. And they were like, yeah, that's a brain. So he called the police and they were like, yeah, that looks like a brain. Everybody's agreeing, it looks like a brain. So they sent it off to the Racine County Medical Examiner's Office because they have no idea what it was doing on the beach or what it was, why it was wrapped up with the flowers and the weird writing. The only thing that they've determined is that it is not human.
Oh, okay.
Not a human brain.
Right.
They were worried because I saw the picture. It looks like a human brain.
Think it's like a monkey brain?
I don't know. Maybe pig brain. Pig brains are kind of close, aren't they? I'm not sure. But the fact that it was wrapped in this package with all this other stuff just screams spell to me. I don't know what it was. I don't know if somebody tried to throw it in the water or what were planning on doing with it.
It's right at the start of football season. You're up there in Wisconsin. You know it's Packers. So it's a damn Packer witch.
Is that what it was?
Was it? Yeah. I mean, was there any Vikings on the,
No. It was just the package with the brain. But they're still looking for information.
Plus, we had a story on Aaron Rodgers.
I know. It's all
connected.
Coincidental.
All connected. Brain on the beach.
Isn't that weird? Could you imagine opening a package and
yes, I can.
It being a brain?
This is why I don't open packages on the beach. I mean, it's going to be like a penis or something.
It said that the paper had Mandarin writing on it. I wonder if it's something that washed up.
Wait a second. In Wisconsin?
I don't know. It said it was on. Oh, I guess not. I don't know. Maybe I was thinking somebody tried to throw it in the water.
If it washed up in Wisconsin, then it's a hell of a story.
Well, it was found along the beach at Samuel Myers Park on Tuesday morning.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, not an ocean.
No, but somebody was trying to throw it in the water and.
No, I get it.
And like a spell kind of thing.
But you were implying that it could have washed up.
Well, I didn't mean like, it was Wisconsin. I didn't mean like it came from China.
We found a hole.
I just meant that
in the bottom of the lake.
I just meant it had weird writing in it.
No, I got you. I got you. I
guess
on that note,
come off a little weird.
That was some great news. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
That was a lot of fun, and hey, it doesn't get any better than the Japanese conspiracy that we caught you, Japan. Just let you know, we caught you. You're busted.
You and your UFOs.
Yeah. So as long as there's not a Catholic Japanese person that's really mad right now about everything that's happened in this episode, I think we're good till the next one. We love you guys. So glad you're back. So glad that we're back. So glad you're back with us. So do us a big solid. If you like the show, you love the show, even if you halfway like the show, go on to iTunes. If you do listen to it like that on the iTunes, and do us a favor, I haven't asked for this for a while, please go take the time and put 5 stars on there and leave us a review, a good one. It really does help the show. Anywhere you do listen to the show, if there's a place to rate it and put and put some words on there, just please do that. That helps us tremendously. Of course, so does being a patron. That helps us tremendously as well. So you can go to patreon.com/paranormal sideshow. As always, you find us on Facebook, have some fun, interact with us. I do want to give a shout out to my new friends down in Newport that work at the Dollar General. The manager at the Dollar General, I'm talking to you, buddy. I hope you enjoy the show. I hope that you're turning other people on to it. I also want to give a shout out to my micro wrestling superstar that has become friends with me, and my little horror buddy. You know who you are too down there at the show. So pretty cool. And you have your extreme wrestling friends, and we'll just keep it at that. You need to give me a shout and say hi. I appreciate you adding me on Facebook already. You and your weird ass. But also we've met a few women down there that had some great stories. I know you guys are listening too. So all the new listeners, thank you so much for tuning in, and leave us a review. Reach out to us. Tell us hi. Tell us how you liked it. If you are from the Catholic Church and you've listened to the show, please don't put a hit out on us. We love you too. From my lovely wife Stacey, my name's John. So long from the sideshow.
Good night.